All right. Should we all in?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 1 in this best of 5 in between Get on the Deers, Veggie, Scyther, and Dinky King versus White Wolf Palace, Bad Koala, Yo, and Vivi. This is the first quarterfinals of AoE4 Pro League, $20,000 on the line in this 3v3 AoE4 tournament.
What a way to start this second weekend. Lita, I'm so happy that you have me here with you, that I can actually see these games happening live. And like myself, instead of watching it on the stream, I can actually see and click around and do all things with my map here because these are names of players that I've either followed in AoE2 or in StarCraft 2 in the past. So seeing them, how they're performing today against one another in AoE4, in 3v3, and on a very open classic Arabia map is something I'm really looking forward to. And you know what? I'm usually in like an FPS caster. So getting in on here, that's going to be extra spicy for me. So thank you very much for having me on today.
It is my pleasure. And looking at the civilizations real quickly, in the pocket for the Get on the Deers team, we will have Scyther playing as the Rus in blue. To the left of him is Dinky King playing as the French in red. And on the other side, we'll have Veggie playing as the yellow Mongols in the flank. And for White Wolf Palace, Mr. Yo is going to be picking English in purple on the flank. It's going to be Vivi in the pocket with green French. And last but not least, you're going to have Bad Koala playing as the Mongols in teal.
All right. So, a way to start things off here, we were talking about kind of the English and how they're going to fare in this matchup. Obviously, so far, early game, not much happening here. You've got Mongols, you got Rus on the other side. The scout on the English side is collecting as many sheep as possible because you kind of want to counteract the fact that the Rus are going to have a pretty comfy entry themselves later on. And the Rus in this case are the blue Rus, and they're playing kind of in the middle here. See them with Scyther. And yeah, he's going to be collecting around. He's got his hunting cabin to also gather up some extra cash, some gold in the early game, help him out with it. So far, quite slow, but that's the early game that you're looking for. The OVO is also set to stone so far. So yeah, pretty cozy start to this game.
Looking at the Bad Koala, he's popping out some Spearmen in Dark Age over here, and we'll have a Barracks coming in from Veggie as well. So both Mongol players opening Spearmen. We're seeing the Spearmen opening more and more from Mongols, simply because if you open Scouts with them, and your opponent's Mongols open Spearmen, suddenly you won't be able to fight that. Now, this being said, the base of Veggie is very, very compact, so it's going to be difficult for those Tia Spearmen to do damage. Whereas on the other side, the Ovu is a lot more exposed for Bad Koala, so that's a lot more of a potential for Veggie to do damage there.
Definitely so. And there's kind of that system where you have your ovu that's kind of surrounded with pastures, and it kind of helps you as you move on with your game and kind of solidify your position as the Mongol player. Just so you know, okay, at some point I'm just gonna move my buildings and relocate and do things as I would like to, as kind of the progression comes in. Golden Gate's gonna come out for the Rus. Nothing too surprising there. School of Cavalry is out for the French in the red. So kind of starting to see where the Australian side is going to. Council Hall is going to south, and there's a bit of harassment by the scout from the red side of Dinky King to kind of try and do a bit of work and slow things down in that age progression for our purple and Yo.
Exactly. It might not seem like it's much, but it's actually pretty annoying, and that's going to slow down that longbow push. On the other side, the Spearmen of Bad Koala were able to deny that gold mine temporarily, so Veggie isn't going to be able to access that, and obviously that's going to delay his Feudal Age. Now he has enough Spearmen to repel this attack though, so the crisis has been averted, but he had to cancel a gird that was being constructed, and now he has to make a tower on that gold mine, so quite a bit of an investment made to try and compensate for that gold mine being exposed.
And here we see Feudal Age being reached, and there's still more harassment. Look at this in the south with the purple side. It's Yo constantly being harassed. He's now got 2 scouts that are going up against his opponent's 1, and he almost killed 2 villagers in all of this, delaying the Feudal Age for around 30 or 4 seconds. That's not too bad at all, and at the same time, our yellow side of Veggie, like you were saying, is kind of chasing his opponent's Khan away, so Teal and Koala is going to fall back to his base.
Exactly. Dinky King was able to delay Yo quite a bit over here. Now, we've discussed the possibility of Mr. Yo potentially going for a Stone Wall plus Longbow and push. It doesn't seem
Mhm.
likely at this point because as things stand, he's not on stone. So it's just going to be good old-fashioned Longbowman play. The question is how much damage he can cause with those because, as we discussed, the lack of mobility for the English could be worrisome in the long run. You already see Scyther coming in with his blue scouts, getting some kills on the deer. Speaking of whom, he already has 500 plus bounties, so that's going to be a pretty decent amount to
Yeah.
start with.
His professional scouts is just about to finish up. There it is, come into play, and those scouts are surrounded by deer, so they're gonna have a good time collecting all that deer and actually shipping it over to his teammate in the yellow veggie potentially. It looks like they will drop it off. There it is. So a bit of team play that's being shown in this, keeping the Mongol veggie in that advantage that he was able to accrue early on, knowing that it's being harassed by Koala. So no problem. He's just going to have some more deer to work with. So constantly being pushed in. And there's the deer stones that are coming up for yellow in this case. As Bat Koala will be hitting the Feudal Age himself.
Exactly, Bad Koala has a head start over here, so now the biggest question for him is if he goes for a lot of archer aggression or if he wants to work towards Castle Age, because he could do a lot more in Castle Age as Mysterio's gold mine is gonna get harassed by the first knight that comes out from Dinky King. And as things stand, Dinky King is going full knights over here. He isn't planning to go professional scouts, and you see, Scyther is also ferrying in some deer for his red teammate, so he is sort of responsible for supplying food to all of his teammates, and that's going to help quite a bit for Dinky King, just making full knights instead of having to add scouts and ferry in deer himself.
Oh, look what's happening on top of all of this now. Koala is just pushing up, realizing that he has that Feudal Age advantage. Hardened Spearmen are pushing up against the regular Spearmen on the opposite side, and the Deerstones are just over halfway done. So maybe looking to use a bit of early game harassment against that gold vein here. One villager, a few still working on that outpost. You want to start building or burning as many buildings as possible. There's some villagers to just sit in another tower that's been set right nearby. And this is going to slow things down a bit for Koala. Decent early game action here by the gold.
Exactly, Bad Koala is able to slow down Veggie here quite a bit. Not a ton of damage done, but obviously having two towers already forced on that gold mine is an accomplishment. That's quite a bit of an investment here from Veggie. And Bad Koala is doing that with pretty much leftover from Dark Age. He's got a bunch of Spearmen out. He has gotten an otherwise not too expensive Hardened Spearman upgrade, but aside from that, he's doing a decent job applying pressure on Veggie's base. Veggie's now up to Feudal, and he's grabbing the Hardened Spearman upgrade himself.
So there's some Royal Knights that are now out for both of our French players. We're kind of chasing around one another in the middle. And otherwise, not much really happening for the French here. It takes a bit of time to amass. Longbows are out for Yo, who harassed and killed a couple of villagers just by that mining camp in the French red side. So a bit of early game damage, and that's why you saw those Royal Knights retreating back. But it seems like things have stabilized, and villagers will get back to work on the gold as longbows will retreat back home.
That was a very nice raid from Mr. Yo. He has to be very careful with his longbows because if those knights jump on them, they could easily get picked apart. And I feel like there's a chance for Dinky King to intercept those because he's got a scout coming around and he also has some knights coming over. So there's a chance he could intercept those longbows, and picking off 5-6 longbows would be a very good value in the Feudal Age.
Oh, big fight also between our yellow and blue, both on hardened spearmen in this case. The Khans are firing in behind, but there's a clear advantage for Veggie in this case, forcing Koala back and closer to his TC. A couple more archers coming out here in support, and actually quite a bit more that are starting up in the production in that archer range just to support them. It's going to do a lot of work to the spearmen who realize what's going on and retreat. Not a fight they're looking for just now. And look at the amount of pastures that have been built up around that oval in Veggie's base. So it's quite a bit for him to start working with. And you know what? Great for him to have a lot of herdable sheep still by that TC, plus the deer that were pulled over a bit earlier. But look at this 2v1 now pushing up onto that right side, with the French allying with the English in this case to fire off at the Royal Knights. And a bit of work from the scouts, at least trying to find an angle from the flank. 4 scouts against these few longbows might be able to do a decent chunk of damage with the knights pushing into the green ones too.
Now, Scyther is already up to Castle Age here with the Rus, as one would expect, and he's got a fairly sizable force of Horse Archers, but we have to mention that those early Horse Archers won't do that well against a big ball of longbows like what Mr. Yo has, so this might not be a super easy fight right now for Scyther's team. There's a decent amount of knights here for Dinky King, though, to hold this. On the right side, the Spearmen are once again coming in from Bad Koala,
Oh.
but the towers should repel this attack without problems.
Battering ram is now in between, and a couple of horse archers will fall. Here's the Royal Nets that are pushing up against one another, trying to go for that good concave. All for the red. I gotta keep smashing through into longbows. Big fight for these knights, and having the horse archers in the back to support, just grinding through those green knights right now. There's quite a few longbows in support, so still got to be careful not to lose too much in this, but seems like this push has been effectively repelled. Battering ram being torched in the back at the same time. And you wish you had some more melee just to push into these longbows. They're a bit tankier than you would think, even. A bit on the flank here, also trying to harass the extra Royal Knights. And all the reinforcements have been caught off. Looks like the longbows are all on their own, with the Green Knights trying to set up a bit of a better pattern. And wow, a lot of Red Knights going down in this fight. Like Donkey King. And you're just trying to wonder, at what point do you stop this offensive? Those longbows are so good at kiting right now that even the knights can't really do much against them, and the horse archers definitely can't do much damage to them, as one volley is just pretty much killing a horse archer in this case. 1-to-1 trade? What do you think about this, Lita?
Yeah, it feels like a very even fight over here. I was actually a little concerned for Yo's longbowmen, because the big difference here was that the horse archers do well against the green knights, whereas the longbows don't do that well against the knights from our red player Dinky King. But ultimately, the longbows retreated very nicely, and Vivi did a very nice job just shielding them from the opponent's knights. So ultimately, that turned out to be an even fight on the right side. Bad Koala is taking a quite decent one, having a lot of archers against all those spearmen. He just picked apart all those spears here. Might even get the con if Veggie's not paying attention.
A bit of damage done to him. Khan is down to around 180 HP, and he's just falling back as best as he can. Warrior Monk is out in the meantime for the Rus, who seem to be quite comfortable in hitting H3 very, very quickly. The first ones to, in this case, is Scyther. And there's the first relic that's going to be ferried back home. And the economy's booming. All looks very good for a Rus in this case. And those archer rages are just cranking out horse archers as fast as they can, comboing with a few lancers that have just come out from our yellow side at Veggie. Not sure what they're looking to do here, but there's definitely potential to rush down one of their opponents.
And it looks like they're heading towards the pocket Vivi. Vivi's got some walls up around his base. Those are very nice and comfy. But of course, the horse archers can still harass those berry villagers, and that's exactly what we're going to see. Scyther coming in with the horse archers. Those are going to be the first villager casualties from White Wolf Palace.
That's 3, and a 4th one that's gotten in the back, and long range on that TC is going to help push back those horse archers with minimal damage taken. See a bit of patrolling here by the Royal Knights of our green side of Vivi. And there's quite a bit for him to deal with above. Not sure if he'll decide to actually take that fight or not. A very cool walling that's been done here by Vivi just to keep his resources in check. And looks like there might be a charge in the meantime. There it is, just trying to slow down the opponent. In the meantime, though, the longbows are coming in from the English side, and this night, there's so much happening. There might not be enough to deal with them. All the horse archers will start melting here with the longbowmen so close, but the red, all of them turning around. Dinky King is being surrounded here for all those royal knights. Just not enough. Only a few of those longbows will fall, but at the same time, so many horse archers going down in this case. Lita, they fell for the bait so hard.
I agree with that one. It looked way better for Scyther and Dinky King than it actually turned out to be. Those longbows arrived just in time, and so far Yo's been doing a very good job keeping those longbows alive. On the right side, we basically have a 1 versus 1 between Veggie and Bad Koala. Probably being won at this point by Veggie, both Mongol players being in Castle Age. Aside from the Rus player, it's only the Mongols being in Castle right now, so we're still missing Castle Age for Yo, and we're missing Castle Age for both French players, Dinky King and Vivi. But the Royal Institute is already coming in for Vivi, so he's gonna get that Castle Age advantage, which means that he can get Royal Bloodlines a lot faster. But of course, he just invested a bunch of resources into that age up, so he could easily find himself outnumbered by knights because Dinky King is going for stable number 4 already.
Yep. Yeah, you just want to get that massive knights up as big as possible. It was smart from Dinky King to retreat once he saw that, you know what, I'm not going to be able to deal with this huge mass of longbows, around 30 or so of them, with knights that are around. That's not a fight you really can take, horse archers around you or not. Just fall back and play that advantage for, that mid to late game. There's no need for you to commit just now. Bit of a fight happening here between our two Mongol players that are on the same side as one another, and seems like there are a bit too many Lancers to deal with for our yellow player here in Veggie, but he's got a few veteran spearmen, might be able to help, and an outpost coming up just behind him by a single villager. There's just too many archers in the back to help out with this, and oh, this is unexpected. Horse archers are coming up from the roost. They're going to try to push as deep as possible, but giving that speed boost, falling back with the Khan, with all the Lancers that are around them. Was this a worthwhile fight? Not too sure in this case, but at least the roost, that extra mobility from having those horse archers is really starting to pay off.
Exactly. Mr. Yo is going to start rolling off on the left side because he realizes that their lack of mobility could start haunting them. As things stand, Castle Age is in for Dinky King as well. He also has a second town center going for him, but he decided to age up with the Guild Hall, which means that he won't be able to grab Royal Bloodlines. And for Vivi, that upgrade is already coming in. That is just a gigantic power spike. 35% extra HP for your cavalry in Castle Age is just a ton. That is an Imperial Age upgrade that you even get a discount on, so this is exactly the power spike that the French are looking for, and that's going to make those Green Knights way better than the ones from the Red player.
In the meantime, our Rus player has collected so many relics right now, it is genuinely not even funny. The Orthodoxy is definitely pleased with all of this. There's a lot of extra cash that's going to be flowing through the coffers of the Rus. Look at the army. 48 horse archers with 7 warrior monks that can constantly keep the pace, keep those buffs up on their horse archers around them. And yeah, at this time, Koala might be thinking, hey, this might be a fight that I can take around buildings if I have the right SimCity for it. But with that many horse archers, it is just not gonna matter much. Khan is in, the villagers are idle, they're gonna have to escape, and look at the mass that is just happening here. There's some outposts for defense in the back with a step readout. Might be the fight that the horse archers don't want to take. Separation between the two as longbows are being pushed at this time. Look at that, Orful players together here, pushing into one another. Longbows doing as much damage as they can. Lancers trying to path around this with the veteran Royal Knights from the red side of Dinky King, but that's SimCity, those berry bushes, they are doing so well. Horse archers are now chiming in into the fight, being surrounded. This is a fight for the ages, and that's exactly what we imagine Age of Empires to always be like. Longbows are going to be forced back. They're down to half as many as they were. And correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be quite a clear victor in this. And
exactly.
It looks like there's a big push.
Exactly, Cider's team is just smacking White Wolf Palace in the face right now. Those longbows were not upgraded to Castle Age units, Yo just reached Castle Age, so that was the only Feudal Age unit on the battlefield. And of course the Horse Archer numbers and the Knight numbers were way better for Dinky King. And now, dealing with all that group of Horse Archers is going to be very difficult. Vivi's villagers might even get caught in the crossfire, so now it looks like Vivi's economy is about to get overrun by Horse Archers.
Oh no, once you get to that critical mass of horse archers, there's just not much that you can do against them. They'll be able to one-shot your big, heavy, tanky units, especially if they have a bit of support. And you know what? At some point, it doesn't matter. After that fight, you've taken so much damage in general that more eco damage is going to be even more important than killing the few extra units that are able to, bring up after these fights. But Vivi was able to raid a bit his opponent here in the red, Dinky King in the meantime, and fortunately, he's got the Rus in to help, and the game is over. Took too long to move in from Feudal to Castle Age, and the English were not able to help out much. Do you think that chiming in on the fight, just going in as the English and seeing how much you can do in that case was the right call? Because it seems like if you don't come in, you lose one of your teammates, but if you do come in, you lose your entire army.
I think you had to move in. Like there was enough army over there for Scyther to just completely knock out the Mongol player by the time the English player lives. So at that point they were like, okay, we are going to try and sandwich those longbows in between the berries to minimize the amount of damage the knights can cause on them. But ultimately, lack of upgrades definitely something that contributed to the defeat of Mr. Yo's team here. And of course, the bigger thing was that you had a completely untouched Rus player this entire game with
Mm.
5+ relics. So obviously, he was able to reinforce his army really fast. He was the player with the largest army by far, and Scyther with 98 kills, 42 deaths. That's by far one of the most effective plays, although Dinking goes at 61 to 28 in the KD department. So both of those players played a very effective game as well, and that's also something that helped a lot.
I mean, there were those early fights that had, uh, was it feudal into early castle, where you had a big fight between knights and longbows in support with the horse archers from Scyther. And we said, you know what, this is a one-to-one trade, just because too many horse archers were lost and they couldn't really do much against the longbows, and they can't already do too much in those 6 to 10 horse archer numbers versus heavily armored knights. So fair enough. But once you get to that mass where you're looking, 40, 50 horse archers with warrior among support, where they can constantly glide around one side of the map to the other. This is the advantage that we talked about early on with Arabia. An open map. It gives you so much flexibility to quote unquote roam, to lurk also with this is FPS terms apply to RTS, and I feel that they work very well in this case because you can have a mass, a blob of horse archers to always support, and then a few others to harass or to defend, and that's exactly what Scyther was able to do. Explains also the kill death ratio that he gets at the end with just the amount of death and destruction he caused, and seems like Rus, good civ, especially when you're able to collect so much bounty so early on. It felt like Scyther at no point in time was being pressured.
Exactly. We could have seen some sort of aggression going his way, like for example from the French player going to the Knights, but it's very difficult to pressure the Rus because their base is just so compact at the beginning of the game.
Mhm.
So it's not like you can pressure their gold mine because they don't mine any gold. It's not like you can pressure their food eco because they just ferry in the deer and they would just make a tower on their food line. So it's very difficult to actually do a lot of damage to their economy. And of course, having so much bounty means that their castlage time is very nice and then they can just collect relics completely untouched. One thing that we could have seen from the Mongol player is attempting to go for Mangudai. That would have been quite interesting because while Mangudai are more expensive than the horse archers, they can shoot while moving, so they can just pursue the horse archers, and they are also pretty decent when it comes to trying to deny relics. It's still difficult and it's still an uphill battle, but I think that could have been an option here for White Wolf Palace. This being said, the home map is going to be Danube River for Mr. Yo's team, so
Oh,
they're about to pick civilizations for that one. A map where Chinese, Delhi, Abbasid, Holy Roman Empire, all of these civilizations can be legitimate choices.
hmm. I'm curious then. What will the response be like? What civs are you expecting in this case, Lita?
Ah, this one's tough, especially because you still have rules available for White Wolf Palace. Now, as a reminder of the rules for everybody, you cannot pick the same civilizations as you did in the directly preceding game. So, game number 2,
Mhm.
you can't pick the civs that you have picked in game number 1, but going into game number 3, you can repick your game number 1 civs. So, if you're not using rules here for White Wolf Palace, you basically didn't use it in the first 2 games and you have missed out on an opportunity. So, for that reason, I think Rus makes some sense here for WWP. Aside from that, I think Chinese is a civilization that you gotta pop over here simply because it is just very powerful late game, and then you can make a decision between something like Delhi or Holy Roman Empire. I think Delhi, Chinese, and Rus seems like the best combination for White Wolf Palace.
Why deciding against Holy Roman Empire in this case? Is it something because you're expecting to see get on the deers going with civilizations that would be able to counter it effectively or kind of choke out the HRE early on, or what is it?
I think the biggest thing with the Holy Roman Empire over here is that while they are very powerful when they are allowed to boom and they have a great economy, there's just nothing spectacular for them.
Mhm.
Like, if you compare it, let's say, to Rus for White Wolf Palace, they will have a very, very resource efficient unit throughout this game. Horse archers, not even costing gold, something that helps you a lot.
Yeah.
They have the Lodya ship system, which helps with the naval combat quite a bit. Delhi is something that you want to pick because you want to keep your teammates and your own fishing eco alive. So part of the reason why I pick Delhi is because you just want to have that safety in Dark Age for your fishing eco, and then Chinese is just a spectacular late game civilization, and this map sometimes goes late game. So I feel like the simple reason of not having HRE here is because there are three better options. Holy Roman Empire would probably be the fourth best option for White Wolf Palace. Forget on the deers who do not have Rus. I think something like Delhi Chinese Holy Roman Empire is something that you can completely justify.
I mean, Chinese overall is kind of a great pick that you can have whenever, and in that late game. So you're expecting this game to go a bit later than what we had here, because this kind of the moment we hit castle and a couple upgrades were coming in, big fight happened, game over. Is this something that you think with Chinese available would not happen as often or be more difficult to replicate?
I think so. I think so.
Okay, having Nest of Bees always great to help you against masses of infantry. That's kind of another reason why, you know what, maybe going HRE, that you're expecting Chinese on the other side. HRE, big strength in infantry. Is this something you really want to go for? Like you say, it's it's not as spectacular as you would like it to be. You have maybe better options in this case. So very excited to see this. I'm praying on seeing more water in this. How do you think it's going to play into this specific map?
So I feel like at the beginning of the game, water is obviously going to be quite important for both teams. And ultimately, it's going to come down to how much the teams prioritize the far left side of the map. Because on Danube River, you can pretty much split the map into two parts. You can
Mhm.
have the part on the right side, which has that island and the river, and the left side, which is basically almost an open land. It has like one cliff in there. So it depends on how much they prioritize pushes on the left side. If you're seeing most of the fight coming down on the right side, then water is going to be very important. And with the civilizations selected, we have Delhi Sultanate for both teams, Holy Roman Empire for both teams, and White Wolf Palace will have Chinese, whereas Scyther, Veggie, and Dink King pick English. So the only difference is English versus Chinese. White Wolf Palace not even going for Rus in game number 1 or 2 might
Huh.
feel like a missed opportunity.
Maybe leaving it until game 3 would be too late if you get knocked down. So, it's definitely going to be something that you always have to think about. And this added layer of complexity where we can't really expect what the second map is going to be like because the bans are done after that first map and you kind of progress as you go with the series. That's something that shifts. You have to shift your strategy for it because you never know what to expect. This is an advantage that Get on the Deers can help or can use to their advantage because you can gather up more information on what Wolf Palace and expect uh, or gather enough information to expect what they will be bringing up versus yourself where you can hide a few more things in the back. And I'm wondering if there is a cross regional practice or cross regional method that gets developed between players that might have gone up against one another in practices or whatever. So maybe an added layer that we don't get to know about because hey, not everybody has their match history available. Not everybody plays everything on the main account that you see on here. So an extra layer to factor in.
Absolutely. So, one of the interesting things to talk about when it comes to the Holy Roman Empire is that they can and they will go for a fast Imperial. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Because in Imperial Age, you get the explosives technology for your demolition ships, and demolition ships are already very powerful. you get explosives, they turn into nuclear warheads. So having having a Holy Roman Empire player going for a fast team here is very dangerous on the water, partly because they will have those super powerful demolition ships quite early.
Are you trying to say that it's possible, maybe perhaps in some world, that we would see demo ships camping certain locations where they can snipe out many of their opponent's land units? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but we actually did see that just before the new year, didn't we?
Exactly. Every once in a while, you see a demolition ship pop and just sink an entire army, and especially in team games where multiple players have to focus on like 4 or 5 different locations at the same time, communicate with teammates. Players not always have the chance to always just babysit their armies. So in a 1v1, when you have like one big army, you usually look at it and you know where things are going. Usually there is not a lot of scenarios where you have like 6, 7 things happening at the same time. It's completely different for team games. You might be pushed on the left side by one player, on the right side by a second player, and then you just suddenly don't look at your army for 20 seconds and the third player explodes a demo ship in
Yeah.
your face. So team games are very intense, and because of that, at some point, someone's going to lose track of his army and get it killed.
Yeah, that's kind of what you're banking on, right? At some point in time, you're just going to be overwhelmed by the amount of things, no matter how good you are. Maybe you have Hera Viper levels of micro, good for you, but even they will make mistakes, and it's going to happen where there's so much happening in the 3v3 context, which is why I think, from an outsider perspective, because I'm not endemic to the scene AoE itself, but from the outside looking in, seeing 1v1 or players that are usually known for their 1v1 prowess competing against one another in 3v3s shifts your whole thought and ideas about them. How will this player now adapt to this completely different way of playing? Will they actually, form certain strategies with their teammates where, uh, you know, we'd see this a lot in the even AoE2 in the day, where players would form up their strategies based on compatibilities between different civilizations, different team buffs, etc., that you can use to your advantage. All of these things you have to account for, and that's that extra layer that makes it more exciting to watch.
Exactly. We do have the game up, so we're entering that spectator delay part. So
Yep.
once again, Holy Roman Empire, English, and the Delhi Sultanate for Get on the Tiers. The only difference is that White Wolf Palace will pick Chinese, which means that Get on the Tiers have to play this game in an aggressive fashion. If they let the Chinese player go, have a completely untouched answers, things could start getting ugly, especially given the fact that neither the Delhi Sultanate or the Holy Roman Empire spearmen can brace. So the only spearmen on the field from Get on the Deers that can stop the Fire Lancers in a meaningful fashion are going to be the English spearmen.
Mm-hmm. Fire Lancer is just going to be a pain to deal with in general. How do you cripple Chinese as best as you can in a team setting to not allow them to mass up that huge chunk of Fire Lancers, where at some point, yeah, not only can they crash into you and suddenly your line just kind of disappears, but also torch all of your artillery very quickly in that late game, and then follow up with their own bombards that can smash through all your defenses. Because suddenly your game plan, maybe that you talked about in map on, or just before we got into it, where maybe sometimes you see English players that go for this kind of creeping wall, quote unquote, creeping barrage to barrel company of heroes quote in here, of okay, I have a stone wall, I could put longbows on it, and it can keep on creeping closer and closer to powerful positions that I can control. Suddenly, this sort of strategy in the middle late game won't be so effective. So, something to also think about in that case. Both teams going for Holy Roman Empire and Delhi Sultanate. Seems like those two civs will be the anchor with the variability of the English and the Chinese. Any synergies to mention with HRE and Delhi in this case?
Ooh, I feel like it's gonna come down to that fishing eco because having the Delhi here is for the sole purpose of keeping yours and your teammate's fishing eco alive, because if you don't have Delhi, then the opponent can just pull the fishing ships, which can, for the Delhi civilization, fire upon enemy units and just harass the opponent's fishing eco. So the biggest point of synergy between the Delhi and the HRE is that you're going to keep the Holy Roman Empire fishing eco alive, so you will have a very powerful food eco for the HRE player, and that helps with that fast Imperial, because you want to cut down that fast Imperial time as much as possible, get to the Palace of Swabia as soon as possible, because the sooner you get there, the more your economy is going to be, and even just a minute difference in the Imperial Age timings will have a massive difference in the villager count. If you think about it, with the Palace of Swabia, you make a villager every 5 seconds, so just a minute difference is already about 10-ish villagers compared to the other Holy Roman Empire player.
All of these synergies that we have to keep thinking about, the variables that we always have to keep in mind in 3v3s. Again, how do you adapt to one another with Get on the Deers that have that one map advantage? How do you think, or what do you think Wet Wolf Palace can learn from the first map that can kind of carry on into Danube River now?
Ooh, interesting question. I think the first thing that they gotta learn is that they need to be a little more active scouting the opponent's armies, because one thing that really stood out for me in the first game is that they felt a little surprised about all that army appearing in the base of Bad Koala. Like, they saw the horse archers, but you could see, I think a second town center was there for VV, if I recall correctly. So I'm not exactly sure if they were aware how big the opponent's army is at. And that's part of the reason why they got into a pretty difficult position. They simply got overrun by superior numbers. So I think that's the first step. On the other hand, this is a completely different map, so I don't think that they have to stress too much on the first game. And they just need to focus on their game plan for this one. And really, their game plan has to be to play a long game, potentially go for quite a lot of stone walls, because that's probably the safest way to play this, and just get the Chinese to a late game scenario where it's going to be difficult for Scyther's team to fight it.
Right. Oddly enough, strategy that can also be employed by the English in this case, maybe a longer game in this. Hey, who knows? That's why we are here to figure it out, as I hope that things are loading up properly. So, Lita, when we're in, would you like to take the reins?
Sure thing, when we're in, because
When we're in, I don't know what's going on.
the game is taking its time. You just need to threaten the game. That's what I figured out. If you
No,
say,
you have to say no, please, game, please. Hey, I have so many memories with you, with the AoEs here. Come on, let's be nice and very appreciative of one another. I'm here to talk about how great you are. Come on, we can go through it. Well, it doesn't seem to be working. So, Lita, I'll leave it to you to play the bad cop. Go ahead.
well, yeah, it's not really working. So usually what I do when the game freaks out like that is
There it
threaten to
is.
Alt F4 it, but it works. I just had to think about Alt F4ing the game, and it works.
The moment he starts with the threats, even thinking about it, it's like, oh no, it's Lita. He's gonna talk crap about me. You know what? Let's just get into game. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 2 in this best of 5. In between, they Get on the Deers versus White Wolf Palace. Up north, we have WWP with Bad Koala playing as the purple Delhi Sultanate. All the way to the north, Lix is playing as the Holy Roman Empire in teal, and Vivi is going to be playing Chinese in the flank. On the other side, you do have English for Scyther playing in yellow. In red, you're going to have Dinky King playing as the Holy Roman Empire in red. And last but not least, Veggie is using the blue Delhi Sultan here. Notably, we will have one substitution. Lix is stepping in place of Mr. Yo, so we do have a personnel change up as well in White Wolf Palace.
All right, definitely something to look into here, Lita. Very happy to be here again for our second map in the series, and so far so good in the early game. Nobody moving yet for those shorefish. When do you? Actually, I see a villager. I see a villager here from our red side, waiting up for that first dock to come up. Yes, we will have it. It's a small little fight we'll go through between our English and Chinese scout, but looks like the first dock going very quickly on it for Dinky King and the HRE.
And you see Veggie added a second scout over here because he's intending to pick off a villager, and Bad Call is like, you shall not pass.
This is actually very quick. 3 docks are pretty much ready to go, and an extra one is being added. And walls are coming up at the same time, so losing no time. Seems like fish is going to be a big deal here, at least in trying to get that big boost early on for your food.
You already have a dock set up for 2 players, actually all 3 players from
All
White Wolf
3,
Plus.
they're all
Yep.
ready.
Yep, exactly. And you have the same thing happening for Scyther's team. So sometimes you see a lot more aggression when it comes to trying to pick off villagers. This time around, it looks like it's going to be super peaceful, and you already have some walls up for Veggie. On the other side, you would expect some walls as well, because the biggest danger is that some scouts get past, and then they try to pick off a villager from the non-Delhi player, because the Delhi's got fishing ships to protect it, not the others. And there's a sneaky villager coming in here from Scyther, so he's got something sneaky on his mind here.
Trying to find exactly where he is, just because of how wide everything is. This is the back part to be myopic, I would suppose. But fishing eco is going very well so far. A couple of fishing ships per player. Is there like a critical mass of fishing ships that you look for in this situation, Lita?
I don't think so. Especially when you're up against Delhi yourself, there is not really a major point at pulling your fishing ships and just trading off against the opponent. Usually what you see in 1v1s, when the Delhi is pulling fishing ships to attack, is that they do it as they go up to Feudal Age. So they already have like 6, 7, 8, because those fishing ships don't do a ton of damage. They are good enough to scare away scouts, they're good enough to harass the opponent, but there is a passive healing ability of docks to nearby ships, and 1 or 2 fishing ships do less damage than the healing capacity of that dock, so there is not much over there. And the walls are slowly going up for Scyther. He's trying to block the enemies from passing on the left side. Vivi had the very same idea, but guess what? There's a scout as well from Vivi, so this could potentially pick off Scyther's villager before the walls are finished.
I love that wall design overall. Just going for style over substance in this case. Second wall coming up right next to it here, and a bit of damage done. The villager is down to 19 HP and going even lower. How far can this Vil go? At one point in time, is going to be able to escape. And looks like they're just going to gang up on their villager. First one will fall, and it's an English villager, and there it is. Poor lady, but you know what? Victory nonetheless for Vivi, and walls will continue going up.
Now, Scyther did one nasty move with that villager before it died. He plays the wall section to block the finish of that first wall from Vivi. So Vivi has to make a completely new layer of walls, because there is no way for him to easily finish that wall due to it being blocked. So at least Scyther forced Vivi to invest some more wood into those walls. In the middle, Lix is also walling up. So as things stand, we're going to have a pretty peaceful Dark Age and probably even Feudal Age here, which obviously helps a lot for the team with the Chinese player, White Wolf Palace, because obviously if you have the Chinese player, you gotta go up to Imperial with a bunch of Fire Lancers, so you want to drag this game out as long as possible if you're playing Chinese.
Yeah.
Although Vivi might actually go a lot more aggressive than we have expected him, because that villager could still go up with a forward dock and just start harassing those fishing ships.
So Dome of Faith is up and ready for the Sultanate. Aachen Chapel is coming in. Not sure if our Chinese... There it is. Barbican of the Sun is coming up for our Chinese player in the green for Vivi. And what's happening on the other side? Council Hall up for our landmark here. Might be where our English want to harass a bit more. Maybe that's an opening for them. Aachen Chapel as well with our Dome of the Faith. So things kind of stabilizing as we head into Feudal Age. This is where we're going to start expecting a bit of action.
Exactly. The longbows are pretty good when it comes to harassing fishing ships, because they do have a quite long range, so they're able to do quite a lot. One way that you can prevent that from happening is making a tower preemptively behind your own docks, but that's not something that we're seeing from White Wolf Palace just yet. Bit of a scuffle with the scouts in the middle, but there's minimal damage that's being caused. In fact, I think there was only 1 kill in this entire game, which indeed was Vivi.
That poor villager that we saw die by the beautiful, very artsy walls that we had in the south of our island here. So, sheep are being cut off here. So, you know what? This is pretty great from Scyther, realizing that, hey, if Vivi is going to be a bit of an ass about this and just pick up as many sheep as possible. I'm going to try to kill as many as I can too. Longbows are being produced from that council hall just to have some archers in the beginning. Expecting a bit of action, a bit of a push early on. So we'll have to see. I'm still so at awe, Lita, by the beautiful walls that we have in the south. Genuinely beautiful.
Exactly. I think the biggest problem right now for Scyther is that some of those are incomplete, so there's a chance
Hmm.
for Vivi's team to push this one. Now, Vivi being the Chinese, he probably doesn't want to be the one pushing this, although he has something different on his mind because there is the forward dock, and he's getting a junk out, and unlike the name suggests, those ships are far from being a junk.
But can galleys actually deal with this sort of damage? Well, there's a few longbowmen, and actually more. They're streaming out of the landmark, and look at how quick that repair from the dock actually happens. Just the junk can survive quite a bit and tank a bit more than what you imagine. Now with two junks that are out, might be enough to push back those longbows. They're taking a decent chunk of damage, but it looks like the galley is the focus of the two junks, and there seems to be another one on the way out. So close to losing the first junk here. It's going to pull back for just a bit, just sitting behind its own teammate. It is up to the yellow to keep on focusing on it here inside there. He knows what's up. Just before pushing through, he's going to retreat with his galley and have his longbows in support with three junks. Things should be stabilizing here and keeping that one in the back alive with 20 HP. Barely anything left, but that thing's going to heal up to max pretty quick.
That was massive value there for Vivi being able to save that. And it was a difficult fight because there were so many longbows coming out, and the galleys individually are stronger than the junks at the beginning of the game. So that one-on-one would have been won by the galley. With the second junk coming out and the one kept alive, now Vivi's got a good chance of pushing the fishing eco here. Now, one thing to keep in mind that obviously this is going to slow down his boom, but Vivi has no intentions of playing eco heavy here. He's already getting stable out, and it looks like we could see quite a lot of horsemen coming in from him as well. In the middle, towers are creeping up for Bad Koala, but so far they are incomplete. I think they have been spotted by Dinky King.
No, there's just two incomplete ones. They're just kind of sitting there next to all of these fishing ships that were put in place. So there's around 12 fishing ships that can do some work in there. Finally, the villager is coming up in support. And with three galleys versus those four junks and with longbow support, it should be a pretty good time for Scyther dock or not. Look at the amount of damage output that they have once we hit this mass. And no extra ships that are being built up right now by Scyther, but not too shabby. Bit of a fight also at the north. Look at that. HRB has built up an extra dock, and a ship has been lost, but the fishing boat at Delhi Sultanate are just keeping up the damage on the dock. No updates yet on those outposts, but one of them is almost done. Two villagers are in position. It might start causing a bit of counter damage.
Exactly, White Wolf Palace is doing quite a lot of aggression over here, and once Lix gets into Imperial Age, that's where that dock becomes very, very relevant, because right now he's getting a couple of Hulks out already, but especially once he gets to Imperial Age with those demolition ships having the explosives upgrade, that's where things get really ugly. For now, Vivi is making sure that Scyther isn't able to counterattack, and of course, with the towers up and arrow slits coming in for Bad Koala, suddenly Dinky King is going to have to rush his fishing eco. I see some Hulks coming in from Dinky King though, and those do quite a lot of damage to buildings. You still have to be careful because towers still pack a big punch against combat ships.
Oh, they do so much damage. Suddenly that Hulk is down to half HP, and the other one was not feeling too good either. A lot of investments into those outposts, and Fortify Outpost is coming up also for the outpost in the back here, using kind of the first one as bait, as the second one is able to do quite a bit of work should their opponents be pushed back. Galleys and Hulk are trying to chase down the junks from our green player Vivi, who's falling back to his dock. He doesn't have any support, but I wonder how much this water fight is distracting the White Wolf Palace in this case.
Oh, it's an interesting question because there's a lot of things to talk about here. We still have a longbow push attempted here by Scyther, so Vivi had to make some horsemen to deal with that. Ultimately, I think is that the English player isn't able to utilize that early game strength with the longbows, I think that has to make White Wolf Palace feel satisfied. Now, though, with Hawks out, those junks will just melt.
Oh, oh, fire ship came out, man. It came out, and there's quite a few ships that were lost. The Baghla also went down. The Hulk is very low in HP here, but it will survive. Loads of damage, but man, this is just action all over in the north. There's a bit of raiding also happening. Big water fight in the center, and the first sacred site that's being pushed through.
Exactly. Dinky King is doing a beautiful job microing that Hawk. Slowly but surely, Scyther and Dinky King are taking the left side. On the right side, you do have the Men-at-Arms building the Stonewall Towers. This is a usual way to get some firepower out there, and another demolition ship is coming in from Veggie. That's going to sink the Hawk and damage the dock. And with that Stonewall Tower up, you should be able to deny ships coming out there. So, reaction from Veggie was very nice to that aggression.
I wonder how deep that Hulk can go back in. You know, you got to be careful. And look, extra stone walls are coming up. This is just so much that can be worked with. And this is what you can use to compensate for the fact that junks, you know, as they are, they can't really 1v1 these galleys or hulks. But with a bit of support from land, it's a lot of dedication on the water side. But still something that you can really push to your advantage as White Wolf Palace with minimal investment versus what your opponents are going through. There's a bit of stone here and there. You're going to have your units anyways to use on later. There's no bad time to have, you know, archers, whatever upgrades on your walls. And look at the tower just doing damage against those galleys, rushing them in. And the junks are just going to heal up and prep for a push as archers will come in support of the stone wall.
Exactly, we get some elephant archers also hitting the field, but getting across those shallows with elephant archers is going to be very risky with all those demolition ships lying around. We got some Stonewall Towers being built here by Veggie as well. This is something that you see more and more from the Delhi players, just using that compound of the defender to make stone wall structures. And now we got some explosive junks coming in as well from Vivi, so this is where that water fight is going to start turning ugly, because you see those explosive ships hitting the battlefield.
There will be a moment where all of those galleys and those couple of hulks are just going to be pushed in. They're not going to be watching for a moment, and this is what we talked about. You know, microing in a 3v3, you never know. And here's first one coming in. It's going to be destroyed before it does too much damage. Hulk is being focused down, and also the Stonewall Tower is doing a bit of work from behind. So a lot for you to handle here. And how do you deal with these towers and all these stone walls that are been put all over this landmass here? Because at some point you're gonna have to move on from this water game, and I'm not sure if the keep that's being built up by our blue and Veggie is the right reaction.
Exactly. The junks are still holding on the left side for Vivi, and now he's in Castlade, so he could get some Vor junks out himself. As things stand, White Wolf Palace is doing a very good job pushing the map, and they have like 60-70% map control. And the biggest thing is that Lix is coming in with docks on the right side again, and he's got explosives on those demolition ships.
Like, Scyther is still in Feudal Age. You have two players on in this case. Maybe this is something that we need to look at, but where can he invest his, you know, his all of the resources that he has? It's just not enough. The White Tower is coming out in the meantime. Is played all the way in the back. Another sacred site is being picked up, but so far things are looking pretty darn good for White Wolf Palace.
It is looking really good indeed, because there are some more demolition ships coming from Lix. He already managed to get some very nice blasts on the fishing geek of Scyther. And you see Scyther is rolling up on the minimap, but as you said before, Sacred Site number 2 is already being captured by White Wolf Palace. As a demo is about to pop out for Lix, this could be massive.
Finally, we see Scyther in the Castle Age. Oh boy.
Oh boy, that's what I was referring to. That's what I was referring to. Imperial Age demolition ships are just absolutely crazy. They just smacked all that fishing eco in the face. You see, you didn't even target a single ship. You just go in between them and blow them up. And now you are going to have some Stone Walls towers coming in for Bad Koala. The biggest thing at this point, though, is that you're going to have 2 sacred sites, which means that you trigger the sacred site countdown. Lix once again coming in with the demolition ships. This is looking worse and worse for Veggie's team, because those demos are just smashing them in the face.
Oh my god, look at Vivi. He's building up a stone wall all across the southern side, all through the hill also to make sure that the fight stays concentrated in the water side, knowing them him and his team will have an advantage in the sacred site control. Same goes for if they were to opt for, wonders, or it's just going to be so much to peel through with those extra stone walls that are added with the ones that are also being placed or have been placed over on the water side. This is looking very, very dire. And on the other side of that Stonewall foundation that you see from our green side of Eevee, Lix is also building up some military buildings. Barracks are on the other side of it. He has some elite knights that are also there to help out. So Scyther is not going to have a good time soon.
Exactly. They're going to be
Another
voted.
demo.
Yeah, like
Another demo!
Lix is trickling in demos left and right, and they're just blowing all the docks up from Veggie's team at this point. We have 2 sacred sites working right now for White Wolf Palace, so at this point we have a sacred site countdown. In 10 minutes of time, you are going to have the White Wolf Palace team winning if their opponents aren't able to neutralize one. We have some longbows from Scyther getting all the way into the base of Bad Koala. Lix has some knights over here to clean that up, but those decided not to work for some time.
Oh man, look at those war elephants that are just moving up. Another keep is being built up. 3 keeps now here, built up in total, all by our Delhi player on this eastern side. But war elephants don't care, just going to keep moving up. A demo will explode right next to them, taking them down very low in HP. They're going to be forced back here and picked up by their transport ship. Pretty smart reactions here, very quick ones. Coming out with back Koala, making sure that mass...
Oh, the demo! Oh, that was big.
Another one! Oh!
Wait, the elephant as well!
Oh, no! They were so softened up in the beginning that the second one was a great finisher. Look at that. How many have fallen? That's 6 or 7 elephants with the bombards and a huge extra pick on those fishing ships. What a big fire ship.
I mean, I didn't think that those elephants died at the beginning. It felt like they just got a big blast and they were like, okay, I'm gonna shake it off because the Mangonel models will delete it immediately, but it's just the death animation of elephants, and I was like, for 5 seconds, are they dead? And yes, they are.
Oh my god, these fire ships are genuinely incredibly powerful right now. Skaven would be very happy with those mini nukes that are added in the game, not gonna lie. So docks are going to be destroyed in here. Big fights all over, but also elite knights have passed through the palisade wall that was set up by Scyther. So yes, whilst you're happy with those pickoffs, don't be too happy. Elite knights are coming through and they can wreck house. A keep being built up from behind. Siege workshop, extra barracks. They're putting pressure on the weakest point, which is Scyther right now in the yellow.
Exactly, right now they are still busy dealing with Lix's demolition ships, and by the time they clean this up, there's already a land push coming in on the south. And keep in mind, there is a sacred site countdown going on right now. We can't see that in the spec overlay, but trust me on the fact that we have about 6.5 minutes left until White Wolf Palace wins on a sacred site terms, and there are knights already from Lix inside the eco of Scyther. Scyther's gonna have a hard time dealing with these, and we're seeing an instance where Chinese are just simply not used for Fire Lancers up until now. As I mentioned that, there's already the Spirit Way, and this is where things are getting really ugly for Veggie's team, because those Fire Lancers are about to hit the field.
Oh man, I don't know how much worse it can get in this case. Those knights are just crashing through into longbows, and you're seeing all of the red eco in this case just trying to work as best as they can around the forest, push through on the siege workshop and the archer range that have been set up. Crossbows in support. You have some gunpowder and bombards just behind. Finally, a bit of military to come in and clean up shop for what seemed like the entire game, that this central island was being controlled by White Wolf Palace. So finally we get to see all of this being pushed up by Get on the Deer. Secret Sites is not contested just yet, but I wonder if this is not just giving more time for military buildup on the other side of White Wolf Palace.
Lix has been doing work with those couple of knights that got into the base of Dinky King. Dinky King lost a ton of villagers, he's down to 54 only. Of course, being the Holy Roman Empire player, he can still reboom, but once again, time is money at this point. Dinky King's got some bombards in the middle. Sacred Site countdown still going on, although it looks like Veggie is going to be able to neutralize this. But on the left side, you already have a push coming in by Lix. Lix is doing a ton of work, and Vivi is just about to arrive with the Fire Lancers, so suddenly Scyther could find himself in a very difficult position.
That's exactly what you're looking for. At this point, it looks like, blue, Veggie is the only one that really can carry the torch forward. He's got a bit of support from Dinky King because he has those bombards, but they're being pushed up. A lot of torch damage happening on them, and finally out of the forest will emerge the army that has been put together, even regular men-at-arms here, anything to push back the Bat Koala in this case. And yeah, the bombers are going to do work. But for how long? Sprinkles just keep on firing in the back, but the Sacred Site is not being contested just yet. Where is that extra army? We need to see Lix kind of in support coming in at some point in time.
Fire
It
Lancers,
has to happen.
Ooh, the Fire Lancers are now in here, and indeed, Veggie taps out. He's got a bunch of Fire Lancers surrounding his landmarks. He was about to get destroyed, but honestly speaking, I don't think it came down to the Fire Lancers in the end. Lix was delaying them so heavily, and if you just look at the villager graph for a brief moment for example, Dinky King, even with the Palace of Schwabia, losing like 30, 40 villagers like that is definitely something that hurts. So, if you think about it, having all that cavalry come in for Lix and killing a ton of eco from Dinky King hurt. And of course, White Wolf Palace had the river for a long time, so they've been smashing fishing eco out there, they have been getting some very nice demolition ships in here. So ultimately, White Wolf Palace was in a commanding position for the overwhelming majority of this game.
I mean, pretty much since the moment you saw 3 junks coming out, there was a bit of a fight around the water side. And despite having longbow support and then later the French kind of chiming into the or sorry, the Holy Roman Empire kind of chiming in on the fight of Dinky King, it still was not enough. That was way before you saw the fire ships coming out. Yes, they had an impact on the game, but I fear that the game was not decided, but it was already skewing more into one side way before the fire ships did their work. And even the second one, yes, it killed a few elephants and a couple bombards. Great. That's kind of the counter. It's a 1-to-1 in that case, if you consider the whole eco damage on both sides. But that early game control over the water really allowed White Wolf Palace to kind of constantly keep up the pressure. And Scyther, oddly enough, after seeing our last game where on match 1, playing the Roos, excellent, not pushed the whole time, etc., here kind of seemed barely there for a long portion of the game, sitting on Feudal Age when you already had 2 players on Imp in the meantime. I'm not sure what was going on there.
Exactly, Scyther was counting on a very good feudal aggression to work out with the longbows. Obviously, it started off by trying to wall off the river because he was afraid of a water aggression. And if that wall worked out and the longbows arrived in time, they could have denied that dock from Vivi. But it all started with Vivi being able to do a lot of damage on the water, and then Lix arriving from the right side with his own docks, sinking a lot of fishing eco. White Wolf Palace had a ton of map control throughout this game, and ultimately, the Fire Lancers barely contributed anything to this game. They just arrived and it was already game over at that time. I think if Vivi just goes standard horsemen or lancers over there, the result would have been the same because he was Imperial Age with a very powerful economy and their opponents were already on the back foot in terms of eco. This also brings us for game number 3, which is going to be on the home map of Veggie's team, and we're going to Highview. So another open map that we're going to have here after Arabia.
How does that compare then to Arabia? Could you apply similar strategies that you had in Arabia on Highview?
In many ways, yes. Highview does have a lot more wolves though, so it is even easier for the Roos to get a good amount of bounties. So this is one of those maps where picking Roos is basically a must-have. It is available for both teams right now. White Wolf Palace hasn't picked it in game number 1 though, so I'm curious to see if they will decide to go for it. Going for French, I think, is also something that makes a lot of sense, and then potentially going for the Mongols as your third civ makes sense as well. I think the biggest question is whether or not White Wolf Palace changes up their strategy and give up on the English approach, which they tried in game number 1.
Honestly, I think that's probably the more solid situation. You know, if you allow Scyther to do the same amount of work that he did in map one, where he's able to constantly carry up that bounty, constantly harass, and just stay in his zone in the middle where he can't really be pushed or poked about the whole time. He is going to do a lot of work. And looks like English has been kind of a letdown in our first two maps. Not sure if it was the Civ or how they were played or the situations they were in, but it doesn't seem to be meshing so well. But then you go to a map that gives you the ability to carry out that bounty faster and more efficiently. Yeah, you have to see Roos in this case. No HRE or Delhi Sultan can be seen. But can you see Get on the Deers picking Chinese for this?
Maybe. I think it's the same thing as in the case of Arabia. I think if you pick Chinese, you have to have a very well thought over game plan with it because Chinese have a
Mhm.
lot of depth and it all comes down to how you use them in early game. Late game, it's obvious how you use them. But early game, they're a little exposed to aggression. You don't have anything spectacular going for them in Feudal Age. They can go horsemen or they can go archers, but none of those will help as much as, let's say, French having knights or Rus
Mhm.
having a fast castle horse archers, or even just Mongols having that early aggression potential. So I feel like Chinese is always an option on open maps, but once again, I think you probably are thinking about saving it up for what could be game number 4.
So, are we expecting, like we saw in map one, Mongols, Rus, and then a third, say maybe French to kind of combo with them? Something that both sides can apply? Are you expecting a mirror in this potentially?
I think that you pretty much have to lock French and Rus in for this map, and I would say Mongols as well. Although, once again, it depends on what type of civilization you want to save for game number 4. And that
Mhm.
comes down to your confidence. If you're confident that you're winning this game, you're not saving up any civilizations for the next game. If you're not so confident and you think that you might lose, then it means that it would be your home map coming up. So you might think about saving up certain civilizations. But ultimately, we have the civilizations in Rus, French, and Mongol mirrors out there for both
There
sides.
it is. There it is. You love to see it, don't you, huh? With this mirror of Mongols, French, and Rus. I mean, would this be the ultimate test in this case? Now you can mirror, you have the mistakes that you learned off of map one. I think this is going to be a good way to decide like who is more of the superior team, at least in these more open spaces. You got the three best civs for it. You got lessons learned from the past, and I'm keeping an eye on Scyther specifically as a player. I want to see what he's able to accomplish in this game and how Wet Wolf Palace as a team also react to him. Because if he's allowed to kind of go around uncontested as the Roos and build up that early game eco and base very effectively is going to be really tough to deal with. That mass of cavalry archers that we saw, once that hit 40, 50, plus 5 relics that were collected, that is insane. You cannot allow a player like him to work so well with the Roos.
Exactly. One major difference here is going to be that the other team has a Rus player as well, which
Mm-hmm.
means that you'll be splitting the bounty in between two players, so it's a little more difficult for the opponent to get as much bounty as you can. Same thing with the hunts, because in the first game, something we haven't talked about is that White Wolf Palace wasn't ferrying in deer at all. The French player wasn't doing that, the English and the Mongols weren't doing that either. So basically, all the accessible carcasses fell into the hands of Scyther as well. He then sort of redistributed those in between his teammates as well. But now you're going to be splitting the carcasses as well, so you won't have that much food to work with for Scyther either.
All right. Looks like our game should be readying up here. Just waiting on our observer delay to step in. Getting quick into our matches here. Quick and efficient players.
Exactly. Number 3 is starting as we speak. So, mirror matchups over here. Oftentimes, people are a little upset when they see mirror matchups, but you have to keep in mind that this game has 8 civilizations right now. So, Having to select
Yeah.
3 of those, especially given the map variety and just given the fact that some civilizations are much better suited for specific maps than others, oftentimes you're going to see mirrors simply because these are the most obvious choices over here. It's not necessarily even the civilizations being overpowered. There is just 3 very good choices for this map, and other civilizations go better on different maps.
Yeah, and you're playing a best of 5 series with a very limited pool of civilizations, but with a fairly large map pool for this sort of thing. There are maps that have similarities that you can compare them to, you can play off of, but this is difficult, I guess, for a lot of players and a lot of viewers, including sometimes myself. I say that, like I said before, as sometimes an outsider to the scene, where I'm more in tune with shooters to come into RTS and say, "Oh, you know what? There's this big comparison where I got used to AoE2 for so long, watching it over many years, especially with DE, that you have so many civilizations to pick from, a lot of flexibility that you can go for, a lot of niche strategies that you can play in specific times and openings during the map, things that you just cannot physically accomplish in AoE4 right now, just given the limited pool of options that you have versus AoE2, which is fine. This is something that's going to progress over time. And we all hope this is going to be more variety, more civilizations maybe in the future. But right now, you're limited. And the main takeaway from me is going to be, like I said before, who was really the best at this. Now you have another Roos player to try to kind of limit Scyther's boom that he had with his bounty in map 1. That's something to look into. How do you adapt to it? How do you slow your opponent down? That's something to look into. And maybe we'll have this actually going beyond just the castle age that we had before, where one big fight in your opponent's base is just going to practically end the game.
Exactly. We're only a minute and a half away from game number 3 here. In game number 1, which was a neutral map, Arabia, Get on the Deers was able to win, and oftentimes close matchups come down to performance on neutral maps. Now, the good news for White Wolf Palace is that this map is very similar to Arabia, so if they can turn things around and sort of take away the opponent's home map over here, that basically equals out to as if they won the neutral map. So they will need to take away the home map of the opponent at some point, and this map could be suitable for that.
So you're on what, 150 left before we go in, or?
Yep, exactly.
All right, good. Just to know that we're nicely synced up. Something that we didn't see too much of an impact with in map 1 were the Mongols. They kind of just floated around, and the big advantage that at least our Australian Mongol player had was having Scyther kind of going for professional scouts and pushing deer to him as he stabilized in his food economy with the sheep. So do you see Mongols being played a bit differently in this case here? And how would it work out with a mirror matchup?
Exactly. All right. So, based on what we've seen so far, who do you think is going to take game number 3 over here?
Honestly, not gonna lie, I am on for Get on the Deers. I'm very impressed with what they've done. Yeah, map 2 wasn't so great, but you kind of have to see that with water maps in general, right? There's water in play. If you control water, it is just so incredibly powerful for you to have as a resource. So in here, when it's just pure land, after seeing map 1, I'm thinking, if Wet Wolf Palace don't control that early game, then it's not going to look pretty. If they just allow Get on the Deers to genuinely get on the Deers in this case.
And with that being said, we're jumping into game number 3. Get on the Deers versus White Wolf Palace. This could be a crucial game for either of these teams because the winner moves on to match point in this best of 5. We are jumping into high view. It is going to be a left versus right matchup. In the pocket is Scyther playing as the Red Rus. Down south of him is going to be Mongols for Veggie in yellow. To the north, we will have in blue Dinky King playing as the blue French. On the other side, Bad Cola is going to be picking Mongols in purple up north. Down south, you'll have the Rus player Vivi in the pocket in teal. And last but not least, Mr. Yo is playing French in green on the bottom. The first thing that one has to note is that now we have French versus Rus on both flanks. In game number 1, it was the Mongols versus Mongols, which means
Mhm.
that they could just trade armies, they have very similar approach. But when you have French versus Mongols, it's a completely different scenario because the Mongols will have a chance to push the French player's gold mine.
Yep. At least early on before those knights come out, and even then, how much can you do? The Khan having some support next to him. The only thing that we know is for real here, Lita, is the team with Rus, French, and Mongols on their side will probably be winning at the end of this. And this is just my own expert opinion on the situation. Feel free to take that however you would like. But that's our startup. Dinky King on the blue here in the French. And who does he have opposite to him? Sometimes it is a bit difficult to find opponents given all of this. Very close here between our Mongol and our Rus also on the north. So I wonder how this Mongol Rus fight would go between our, in this case, our red and yellow helping each other out, and northern side of Koala and Vivi. Huh. Why do I feel so confused today, Lita? What is going on?
Team games can be very confusing because there's just so
Genuinely.
many things going on, especially because the players can't pick their own colors. So sometimes their colors are bound to their locations, and because of that, obviously it's a little more confusing to watch. Hopefully, the devs will implement changes to that at some point, being able to
I'm
pick
zooming
colors.
my eyes on that mini map. There's no two ways around it. That monitor is coming closer just so I can see what the hell is going on with everything.
You are going to have forward villagers moving in here from Vegido across that stealth forest. It's a little difficult to spot those tiny little yellow dots moving through that
Mm-hmm.
otherwise brownish foliage. But we do have a spearman rush from Bat Koala coming in, and he's doing the exact same thing. Mongols towers coming in on those gold mines. Whichever Mongol player is able to do more damage to the opponent's French player could carve out a big lead to their team. And this is where we have to mention that Yo's gold mine is much safer than the one from Dinky King here.
Oh, Scout's been knocked out here by the Roost TC up in the north, so Dinky King will lose out his scout early on, and you see that Mongol push is trying to light that mining camp on fire. Pretty decent work to start things off.
You do have the Spearman already setting that mining camp on fire. Dinky King was able to afford Feudal Age here, and that's the first benchmark for him. But affording Knights is a completely different story. He's at 41 gold. And even if he gets one Knight out, that's quite a lot of Spearmen to fight against. So, as things stand, it's very possible Batkola can burn down that mining camp, which will give him 50 food and gold. And that's a ton of resources in Dark Age if you think about that. Other side, towers are coming up for Veggie, and those will deny the Lumberjacks of Yo. But denying the Lumberjacks is way less impactful than denying the gold miners.
And mining camps is gonna go down. School cavalry is coming up for the French, but you kind of know that you're gonna be pushed up here in the early game as the French. You know, you have a Mongol on the other side. You kind of have to accept it. But look at this dedication. An extra outpost is going up, immediately spotted here, and the TC is able to fire at it and force the cancellation of the outpost. Second one's being built in a bit behind. This is a lot of dedication here for our Mongol player in Koala, but choking out the French ASAP might just be the right way to go.
Same thing is done by Veggie over here, getting tower number 2 up. As I said, the biggest difference is that this tower, while it's annoying for Mr. Yo, it's not cutting him off from gold, which allows you to start getting some knights out. And while spearmen are powerful against knights, these are going to be Dark Age spearmen against Feudal Age knights, and sometimes you don't even engage this one until you have like 5 knights. So Yo's gonna have a chance to take that tower down, whereas it's gonna be a lot more difficult for Dinky King to deal with that. He's just now reaching Feudal Age. Scyther is at 365 bounty, and Vivi is at 340, so the two Rus players are head-to-head when it comes to collecting bounty.
Are pretty equal in this case. Finally, Scyther meeting his match in this third map that we see in the series. At least backing off in that aggression. Outpost to south, yellow is still firing off into our French house. Bit of a fight happening here between our two scouts in the south, but in the north, the villagers have been pushed back off the deers that were dropped here, and there's still two villagers, the Khan and a spearman for Bad Koala. They're just patrolling. They're going to steal one sheep and take it back. A lot of dedication, a lot more success happening for Koala against Dinky Gang than what we had versus Yo from Veggie.
Exactly. Now, one notable thing is that Yo had to add an archer range over here, which is quite unconventional for a French player, so there was definitely some results from that tower rush. I guess he's adding that so he can deal with the couple of spearmen that come out, but as the French player in team games, you really don't want to add archer ranges, you just want to go full cavalry if possible.
So more of an attack in that northern side. One outpost being cancelled, the second one as well. And as one is being built up by the Mongols to keep on firing into future lumber camps. That one's definitely going to be set on fire. Only one Royal Knight will emerge. And more towers are being built up just to protect the wood line at this point. Anything would be great to have. Actually, lumber camp is not set on fire. Just pushing back to protect the further outpost crawl that is being built up by the Mongols. And what else are we seeing? Lumber camp is out. Just trying to delay as much as possible here. Khan is flowing around the map here as Scout is nearby, forcing the Royal Knight back quite a bit. There's too many spearmen to just maneuver them with a couple of units of cavalry.
Exactly, and that tower is in a spectacular position for Bat Koala. It's gonna be able to reach the berries and deny these lumberjacks as well. But you see Dinky King's reaction. He's pulling the villagers to the other tower. That's a clever move. That tower has no one garrisoned inside, so it's not shooting any arrows.
That's very smart in this case, and just throwing all their torches into that outpost that will go down very quickly. Though, yeah, I think there was an upgrade that was being built onto it, got cancelled a bit ago. Outposts, though, in the center by the lumber camp are not garrisoned at all, and still an extra outpost is being built up here by the French. Very quick. A lot of those villagers are focused on it. One vill will go down before the outpost is garrisoned, and no spearmen dying in this exchange. No, only one of them going down for such a minimal investment. A lot of work is going to destroy that economy very quickly for the French side, and doing very well with that northern outpost that was built a bit earlier. There's a lot of push here onto Dinky King. Nobody able to help him out in this situation. What do you think so?
Exactly. At this point, Dinky King isn't able to mass cavalry. Mr. Yo isn't in a great spot either because there are some towers coming behind his gold mine now. In fact, that's the fourth tower coming in. Veggie has been making a stone or a tower crawl happen here in literal terms. 3 towers and now a 4th one coming in. So now Yo is also losing his gold mine out on the right side.
It's big to deny the gold in this case just because you can't get your Royal Knight spam really started. You know, you want to have that mass, but if you don't have the resources for it, it's really going to weigh hard on you. And still, back to that yellow side. It's a bit of work done by the outpost in the south. Archers being massed up in the meantime. A bit of pressure onto our purple player, Bat Koala, realizing here in the blue Dinky King, like, you know what? I might just want to poke or prod around, see what maybe I can do as counter damage, but not much could be done in there. There's a couple scouts here in support and has a couple spearmen that have been brought out, so not much that can be done by our blue side of Dinky King. Is just keeping up the pressure on him. Scyther can afford to send him a couple of scouts here, but those spearmen are a bit further away, and scouts don't really fare too well against spearmen in this case.
Exactly. At this point, Mr. Yo is still getting cornered in here by multiple towers, actually. We have Vivi ferrying in some deer for him. One thing we haven't mentioned is that we now have both Rus players in Castlate, so Horse Archers are about to hit the field, which can make it a lot easier to clean up those armies that have been supporting those tower rushes.
And actually, a few of them have already been brought up on Siler's side, so there's something that he can be very much happy about. And actually, pretty much equal numbers, a few more On the other side for Vivi here, he's got around 8 so far built up. You need to put up, a dozen or so of them before you can really move out and clear out your opponents. Lightly armored spearmen, you're going to be able to deal with them very effectively. It's just getting them out of the outposts that might require a bit more help from your teammates that are being besieged in this case. How do you get out of this Mongol choke, Lita?
This is difficult because the first thing that you need for that is a couple of torch units. That could be knights if you have some, but you need something that deals with the spearmen. Ultimately, if you have enough knights, you can just charge them and fight them. Especially if you micro your knights in a way that you can keep your low HP ones alive and then heal them back up. But there is, of course, a lot of towers in here, and the biggest problem with this Mongol push right now for both French players is that they have a hard time accessing gold, so it's difficult for them to mass an army that's capable of destroying those towers.
So, just a moment there on the sacred site. Wasn't really much. That was a warrior monk moving through, trying to collect any relics for our red side of Scyther. Seems like relic collection is a very important thing for him, which makes sense. He already has one relic set in his Abbey of the Trinity, and one also on the VV side. So relics, very important in this case, just keeping up with your production. A lot of horse archers being put up, and you combo those with some French Royal Knight support. Going to be able to clear out your opponents very effectively. Torch damage from the knights, plus the archers to clear out any spearmen that are around. But so far, it's just a lot of noise happening around Dinky King, and at some point, that's going to have like an emotional effect on you. There's just so much to keep on hearing, knowing that, okay, I'm being constantly harassed, and I just need to wait.
He's losing villagers on those wood lines now for some time because as he's chopping down trees, he's getting closer and closer to those towers, and now you see some dead bodies among those lumberjacks. On the right side, though, we do have Mr. Yo cleaning up the towers in his base with some battering rams. He made those with the archers, and now you see some horse archers moving up on the base of Veggie. So now, I feel like White Wolf Palace is switching gears because Yo is finally getting relieved from that pressure, whereas Dinky King is still far from there.
Also, look at this. A couple of, because our Mongol player Koala has hit H3 a bit ago, he's got to have some Lancers to bring out. He also has some hardened spearmen that can come in for support. Bit of play here from our French side to try to push away the forest side. But yeah, those two armies here just effectively kiting one another, trying to fall back. Just a lot to keep up with in this case for these players, but the amount of horse archers that are available, they're going to be able to clear up any fights, and yeah, there's just no way for those red horse archers either to escape, but at least he sees that there's a big mass on the other side.
At this point, we do have horse archers being massed by both parties, 2 relics in the pocket for Scyther, and on the other side you have 3 coming in for VV, so head-to-head in the relic department are the 2 Rus players.
Keeping up with the fight still. Economy rolling very well for VV in this case. Going for an extra town center to be added onto all of this. 3 relics have been collected in the meantime. 2 relics on our southern red side is just now is able to remass up those archers, but there's just not enough horse archers to help out in this case, and just constantly putting up the pressure on this blue side of Dinky King, who's going to start to really feel this. Here's Lancers that are coming up against the Royal Knights on the other side. They've got a Khan in support as well for the extra buffs, the speed just in case they want to fall back. And it looks like our red side of Scyther is moving up to push on to Yo in this case, seeing an opportunity perhaps in the open wood line with all these horse archers. Maybe something that he can use to his advantage.
Indeed, that's a possibility. We still have Dinky King under pressure, as now you see some purple Lancers hit the field, because one thing that we haven't talked about is that Bad Koala is now up to Castle Age. Dinky King is the only player still in Feudal. He's got 2 town centers, so his eco is now starting to build up, but obviously he's still far away from impacting the battle with his army. As things stand, the horse archer numbers seem to be fairly even between the 2 Rus players, but VV is spreading them out. Some of them are hitting Dinky King, whereas the others are trying to slow down the push of Scyther on the right side.
And Vivi is losing quite a few of them here against that blob. And you said blob, they're kind of separated into 2 just in case you want to outflank your opponent or you get flanked from behind. So just keeping up together and the red of Scyther is going to come on down and support his teammate. Potentially in this push against green, a few extra horse archers have been lost. They're just going to fall back in the meantime. This might go deeper into that late game as the Royal Knights have started to clear out outposts. That's the torch damage that we're looking for. But how much damage has been done to Dinky King? He's been slowed down substantially versus what has happened on the other side for Yo.
Exactly. We have Veggie slowly crawling up with a couple of Mangonels, and supported by Spearman, that could be a quite dangerous force to fight. Currently, Yo doesn't have a ton of knights to work with, and both the horse archers and the archers will just die to the Mangonel fire, so you gotta be careful with that one if you are White Wolf Palace. Yo's got a lot of buildings in front of his base though, so he's gonna be able to spot any kind of aggression coming his way. Horse archers now pushing up here for Scyther, and one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is that on this map, you have a lot of stealth for us, so ambushing the opponent is a possibility, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the middle.
Great ambush to have a few of those horse archers going down. A Bat Koala is also here in support with his own Lancers caught out in the open. Scyther is going to have to fall back, and it's only one side of his two bunches of horse archers. So far, not much that we've been able to see from Veggie, though, as kind of seeming a bit quiet as our Mongol player. Not sure what that later plan will be.
Down south, Veggie looks like he's going to retreat for a time being. He's waiting for his teammates. Right now, we have 5 relics for Vivi. On the other side, I count 4 relics for Scyther. So they pretty much split the relics as evenly as it was possible to be had. So the Rus players will have a minimal difference when it comes to their economies. But the army numbers seem to be way bigger for White Wolf Palace. Their Mongol player has a sizable force of Lancers here. And right now the mobility advantage is on their side because Veggie has a slower moving army with men-at-arms and spearmen.
A bit slower here. That's something that can be exploited by this very quick cavalry and the horse archers that we see from both sides. So, hey, something to watch out for in the future. All right, what do we have here? Spearmen have built up some battering rams. It seems like Bat Koala wants to try and pressure Dinky King a bit harder, but not sure if he's going to have some support from his teammates to try to deal with those Royal Knights that see an opening here and push through into our outpost. A big fight happening at the same time in the center around that sacred site. And our Lancers, they're going to have to fall back. Horse archers are close up. And looks like the split from the red is not going to be enough to deal with the mass on the other side. Look at that, horse archers going down, but look at the flank going up from above. Scytherus might have found the perfect opening for himself if he can keep himself alive, targeting his enemies. Horse archers of Vivi, who are falling back. Not much that they can do versus the big mass. Not even the Lancers can do much against them. Being chased down by the warrior amongst two at the front. A lot of work that's been done in Sacred Site fight has gone the way of the red side of Get on the Deers.
Exactly, that was a great fight for Scyther. He was able to just split up Vivi's forces and then tear them apart. And now, Vivi's numbers aren't so satisfying anymore. Veggie isn't really contributing that much to the army right now, but he's slowly building up a mass of men-at-arms, and that could be great to soak up arrow fire. Now, on the other side, we have Bat Koala slowly crawling up on the base of Dinky King, but with that many horse archers coming in to reinforce, this is gonna be a hard fight for Bat Koala to take.
This is gonna be a really tough one here. Royal Knights are up and ready. Lancers are trying to dive into them. They have some men-at-arms in support, but Scyther just has so much behind him. 54 horse archers that are pushing in and just pushing down onto those Lancers, firing into them. They can't really survive too long with the amount of arrows that are being thrown into them. They're just going to fall back, and maybe the best course of action here is to try to hit your opponent's eco with whatever you still have left, because you cannot take a straight-up fight against them.
Exactly. At this point, that big mass of horse archers is what is carrying the Get on the Deers. At this point, they have the HP upgrade as well, and Vivi needs to get his own horse archer numbers up here if he wants to be competitive. Down south, Mr. Yo is coming in with a couple of knights, getting some nice raids going. Yo also going for a second town center. As things stand, the most significant numbers are put up by the Rus players over here. The other two flank players are just assisting with a couple of units, but you don't see big armies from them up until now.
I'm wondering what the dynamic economically is actually between those players. Is there anything happening in the background that we just cannot see resource-wise to keep that production up and ready for the Rus? They're charging in, they're doing so much damage against the Lancers, and it's just such a huge mass that is forcing everybody back in this case with those Royal Knights also in support should the fight devolve into a melee in this case. Horse archers are falling back, and I'm not sure when there'll be that transition into siege units. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, also with Mongols being into play. But one thing to note is that Dinky King is still in the Feudal Age.
And meanwhile, Vivi is going up to Imperial Age. He's rushing up the Spasskaya Tower with no less than 26 villagers. This could be the power spike they're waiting for, because in Imperial Age, those Rus horse archers suddenly become extremely powerful. They will get an extra range upgrade, and of course the elite upgrade alongside the blacksmith upgrades helps a lot. So if Vivi is able to take one well-timed fight over here, he could easily wipe out Scyther's superior numbers.
There it is. That Imperial Age is in, effective. And now, Vivi, what is he going to do with it? Spasskaya Tower is in, so you can use that to kind of move around it and protect your front, especially where you see that Imperial Age eco starting off with the wood line that has been set up around that TC as well. So understanding the reasoning behind the positioning of some buildings and how they're set, especially is right now, we don't see any artillery in play. So you don't really have to worry about too much pressure being put down on your buildings. It's mostly, hey, how are the army fights going to go down in this case? Yo raiding a bit to the south. He's going to be found by some veteran spearmen from Veggie. Going to trade very well versus those veteran Royal Knights. Actually forced them back in this case. So many outposts have been built up around that redoubt and the gold, just making sure that that vein stays in the hands of Veggie so it can keep on growing.
Looking at the army of Vivi, he's about to get those Imperial Age upgrades in, and I feel like Scyther's window is closing to take this fight. Whenever you see your opponent getting into Imperial Age and you're still in castle, you want to force that fight before his opponent gets the Imperial Age upgrades, and now those horse archers are finding some villagers in the middle, getting some nice Vil picks out there, and this is the moment where those elite horse archers, or soon to be elite, could run into the base of Veggie and do a ton of damage.
It's looking pretty dire here. Look at that. Just running in to get yourself in the perfect position and picking off as many of those villagers as humanly possible. They're going to fall so quick. Just move into it all. This is not looking pretty. No TC can save you from this sort of damage, whilst at the same time, up in the north, there's a bit of trade-off as the Lancers from Bat Koala were kind of pushing down into that blue base. Things are being cleared out as we speak, at least pushing their opponents back. Red coming in for support. But hey, maybe having Scyther's troops in here to help against Vivi's now elite horse archers would have been the better play. They're finally kind of send a few down to in support, and actually quite a few of them, but maybe it's too little too late.
Exactly, it's a little too late, in fact quite a bit late. 27 villagers remain only for Veggie. He's got a sizable force of men-at-arms and mangonels pushing up Mr. Yo, but Yo can stall this one out, and if he's able to do that, then there is just no way that Veggie can replenish his army, and the moment Scyther pulls his army to the south to fight those elite horse archers, which are now fully upgraded so they can take a good fight over here, you will see Bad Koala moving up on Dinky King. He's now up to Castle Age, but I think at this point the biggest power spike you have is Vivi's elite horse archers, because those will trade very effectively here.
Very, very effectively. They have that extra armor that they got, but actually just because of the mass, because they're able to reinforce so quickly, a lot of those elite horse archers from Vivi are falling very quickly. Despite the range and all, they can't really escape too far. They're going to be met with all the outposts that have been put up in defense with that step readout. So quite a few of them have fallen, and this might be able to give Scyther a bit of breathing room, but maybe the damage to Veggie's economy is too much for him to recover from effectively.
Exactly, because now that Veggie's army is getting repelled by the forces of Mr. Yo, and now that you see Bad Koala smacking Dinky King in the face, you just wonder how Dinky King's team could recover from this one, because I think they're just set back way too much. The Royal Knights from Dinky King don't have the Royal Bloodlines upgrade just yet. Simply, Dinky King is lacking the resources to do that, and you still have one Imperial Age player for White Wolf Palace, whereas there is none for Scyther's team.
This game could go on for much longer than we imagined just because of how the trades are happening, but trying to make it go as fast as possible is Koala. He's got a huge mass of his Lancers up in that blue base of Dinky King, making sure that he can't progress beyond that Castle Age, building everything so close to one another with the farms. He could finally have an economy, finally do something with whatever he was left with after that huge Feudal Age push that we saw for so long happening from his opponent on the Mongol side. Finally, a bit of support, but that shouldn't be enough to deter the Lancers too much. It's always the fear of what is behind those horse archers that you just see in front of you. Bit of damage, poke out, come back at another angle. It's a very good way to play things, as it's a bit of work being done by those elite horse archers being built back up to strength.
Exactly. At this point, the biggest problem for Scyther's team is that Scyther can't be everywhere. And wherever he's not present, the opponents will push up. So you see Bad Koala, he sees the horse archers, he retreats. But in that very same moment, you see the horse archers down south from Vivi pushing the base of Veggie over here. Also supported by some Royal Knights from Mr. Yo. Veggie is still down to 40 villagers, and while he still has a sizable army right now, the problem is that recovering or rebuilding that army is going to be extremely difficult.
Having Mangonels also in support from behind, just making sure that any mass that shows up, be it cavalry or archers, melee, whatever it is, you can do a lot of damage against them, and actually dropping those veteran Royal Knights to half HP pretty much on most of them. So that's a lot of work that has been done. But like you say, the elite horse archers are such, they're just so powerful to have that Scyther, needing to constantly maneuver between so many different parts of the map, cannot just go up to Imperial and focus on his own upgrade himself, because there's so much work for him to do, given the fact that Dinky King got pushed up. But up in the north, there's a big fight happening here between our veteran Royal Knights. Lancers are coming up, elite horse archers as well in support, with a keep that was just built up. A lot of damage here being done with outposts also in support. And looks like the veteran knights will melt so quickly to the fire of the elite horse archers. And what is coming up behind them? A bombard. It's time for some gunpowder, Lita.
Exactly. And that castle is there to empower the stables, so the cost on those knights is a little cheaper, but it's going to be very difficult to destroy that bombard, if not impossible. You're going to have to commit all your horse archers to this one, but obviously, Vivi is going to be more than happy to take that fight with the elite horse archers he has. Of course, you also have some Lancer support, which will soak up a lot of arrow fire. Castle is being fired upon as we speak. A second bombard is coming in. Numbers are still really good here for Scyther, though, so Vivi has to be careful. But the technology advantage is quite considerable at this point.
There is, what, 144 HP to 105 difference between those elite and those standard horse archers that the Rus of the red side has Scyther. There's a huge difference amount that they have, but you don't want to over micro your horse archers in this case, just because of the amount of surplus damage that you're doing with every single volley. It seems like with bombard support and just with the tankiness of those elite horse archers, Scyther is going to be cleaned up. Most of his horse archers are dead around that gold, and for what? Not much territory gained. The bombards just firing up into the keep. That won't last for too long. Make that 3 bombards in this case, and it's all done. Scyther eliminated, and I assume his teammates will fall very shortly.
Exactly, Veggie tapped out over here. Veggie is just unable to recover at this point. Mr. Yo behind this one got to Imperial Age as well, so we were about to see fully upgraded elite French Royal Knights hitting the field as well. It was 2 Imperial Age players versus none, and of course Veggie was set back very heavily in the eco. Ultimately, it came down to that Imperial Age power spike from Vivi, because that gave him such a technology advantage. Throughout this game, you could have the numbers advantage for Scyther, but ultimately, the technology advantage for Vivi kicked in, and if you look at the KD, that's what it comes down to, 261 to 190 for Vivi, as opposed to 234, 223 for Scyther. So that efficiency was obviously there for Vivi, and the other thing, of course, Mr. Yo being able to clean up those towers in his base faster than Dinky King was able to.
Honestly, I feel for Dinky King. it really has to weigh on you when you realize that, hey, I spawned at the top next to two opponents and they're going to keep on harassing me. Now, it wasn't the two that really caused a lot of the damage early on in the game. It was just really Bat Koala just kept on harassing him constantly. That must have sucked. You know, being constantly pressured by Bat Koala, knowing that you always have to look out for an outpost to one side or the other, having just enough spearmen to push you away. And he didn't have any support because Scyther is supposed to be the one that kind of stays back in the early game until he's able to get his horse archers up and ready. He wasn't able to. And White Wolf Palace, this is the thing about them, is that the moment they find an opening, they just kind of keep stabbing you in that wound, and it hurts so much. And they knew that if they kept the focus on Dinky King, at some point it will force a big fight, and that's what happened in the end, where everything gets cleaned up.
So, looking at the game number 4 coming up, it is match point for White Wolf Palace. Hill and Dale will be the pick for Veggie's team. So we're going to a much slower paced map. This is a map where Chinese can thrive. This is a map where Holy Roman Empire could hit the field once again. And then you probably have to make a decision on your third civilization, which could be a number of options. I think the most popular so far have been the Abbasids, because the Abbasid
Mhm.
Spearman could be a very nice tool to deal with the Fire Lancers. So I would expect an Abbasid, Holy Roman Empire, and Chinese combination. HRE and
Yeah.
Chinese should be locks. Aside from there, Holy Roman Empire, of course, very strong, fast Imperial. Chinese have a very strong economy, and then Fire Lancers, of course, but also they have a good Castle Age push if they really want to go aggressive with Palace Guards and the Nest of Bees. And of course, then again, the third civilization, which could be the Abbasids. Of course, you can't use these three civilizations. Mongols, Rus, and French are gone. So you're left with the choice of Abbasids or the Delhi Sultanate or potentially English. English have been a choice sometimes in these sets before.
I don't know, man. After seeing those first two series, English just, I'm not vibing with the English today. You know, it's too much beans on toast. It does something for you. And I don't know. Maybe today is just not the day. Maybe this series itself, they're by default, like this very defensive civilization, which fits well. But my question to you in this case would be, do you expect just turtle up and survive for as long as you can in this case?
Oh, this is a tricky question because you really don't want to waste the potential for a good late game with the Chinese. On the other hand, oftentimes you see that overconfidence from players or teams that they are just safe and they will just play full eco. And we have seen a lot of aggressive plays. In particular, if we go back to game number 2 on Danube River, the Chinese player Vivi played a lot more aggressively than you would anticipate on that map. So it's very possible that we're going to see something quite aggressive come up here. The Holy Roman Empire can go fast Imperial, which means that he can have access to bombards really fast. The Abbasid dynasty has a good push as well in Feudal Age if they really want to go for that. In Chinese, they have a powerful eco, so don't underestimate a fast castle into Palace Guards type push. I think
Hmm.
the most reasonable thing that you could possibly do is have an aggressive opening from the Abbasids with quite a lot of spearmen, potentially even rams. Try to start doing some damage on the opponent's Chinese or HRE player before they really get their eco set up. Because oftentimes you see players delaying their volts quite a bit, and the Abbasids could get quite a lot of spearmen out there. And if they really want to, the Chinese can support that with any kind of unit he wants in Feudal Age. Supervise a stable for horsemen or supervise a range for archers. I think the safest play here, though, would be to go for an aggressive play with the Abbasids, boom behind that one with the Chinese and the HRE, and if your push stalls out to the Abbasids, you can still add TC number 2 and 3 and catch up nice and easy.
But can you? Hmm, because it seems like on this map specifically, you don't have to worry about your spawning side as much as we did on map 3. So is this something where you can be more relaxed about, hey, I probably won't be harassed as much, and even then in the early game I could have some support a bit faster than a much wider open map like we had in map 3?
Exactly. So, the players are setting up the game right now. It is match point. So, as we go into that game, we can take a look at how these teams performed in the qualifiers, because this map was played in the qualifiers, so we can see how they fared on this map before. White Wolf Palace has not played this one in the round of 16th, so they could still have some sneaky strategies set up over here that we haven't seen from them. Whereas Get on the Tears, they did play this game and they lost it in the round of 16th. The Civilization matchup was identical, Chinese, Holy Roman Empire, and Abbasids, and the way that Dinky King's team lost it was that they fell to an overrunning of the Abbasid Spearmen, which are super powerful. Funnily enough, that was a victory from another Chinese team that happened against them. So knowing how close the knit and how much communication you have within the Chinese community, I can very much see that Chinese team relaying a ton of information here to Mr. Yo's team before this set, telling them, okay, this is how we won that Hill and Dale game, and this is something that you might want to be prepared for.
All right. I'm interested in that dynamic now in this case between them. Honestly, this is going to be a fitting one to see also a more equal map where the seating might not be as much of a thing, or your spawn position might not be as much of a problem. You don't have to deal with water. I said map 3 was going to be the big test. It definitely looked like White Wolf Palace are able to control wide swaths of the map, but it definitely did help that they could kind of isolate one player and deal with them effectively. But having that massive horse archers and getting to Imperial Age so effectively, it seems like our light blue player, teal player was just kind of unmolested the whole game. He just sat back and masked up and went to Imperial faster. Do you think that there would be that faster rush into Imp on map 4?
Potentially. I can see that being a thing. It's a little difficult to predict what we're going to see here, I think, because there are obviously some clear, I would say, meta picks or obvious decisions, but then again, this is match point for White Wolf Palace, so going for the obvious might not be the smartest choice of all. Alright, so
we're readying up here, just joining in for that observation. Yo is not in. There we go.
Yeah, it takes some
So
time
there's a
for them to load
swap.
up.
Is Yo not in this? No, he's not. Lix has jumped in for what could be potentially our final map. We got Chinese, Abbasid, and HRE for both sides. Big surprise that we see a mirror again, Lita, or not?
Nope, I am not surprised at all, to be honest. I think these three civilizations are just the clear standout civilizations on this map. You can make a case for civilizations like the English being used, but Chinese and the Holy Roman Empire are sort of no-brainers for this map, and then you pretty much have to select the third civilization. And as much as the Fire Lancers are powerful, the Abbasid Spearmen are probably the best tools to fight them. They do have a longer range thanks to the Phalanx ability, and they're rather cheap, of course. Abbasids have a good economy, and the Abbasids have a good chance to just spam out those Spearmen and combat all those Fire Lancers. The Abbasid Spearmen can also brace, so they can negate those explosive charges, which is a massive component to this.
Well, what is the job of the Holy Roman Empire in this? Because you talked about the Chinese in the late game and their pushes with the Fire Lancers and Bombards. You talked about the Abbasids with how they're able to kind of counter that from the Chinese if positioned correctly. What does the HRE play in this?
So the HRE player, first, of course, he's going to play a fast Imperial with the Ragnitz Cathedral in Castle Age, grab the relics, get fast Imperial with the Palace of Swabia, and then build up a massive economy. That's always the first component for Holy Roman Empire, and really the thing that the HRE contributes is economy. Holy Roman Empire has one of the best and most effective economies in the entire game. They get a lot of gold from those relics. They do have a good food eco if the farms are built around the Aachen Chapel. So the first thing that they can contribute is bank up a ton of resources, and that can help potentially slink teammates. It's always an option. The second is that while they don't have anything spectacular in Imperial Age when it comes to their army, they do have fully upgraded elite knights, so those are powerful units to fight against. They do have very good infantry, So, especially if your opponent is very heavy on the infantry department, like Abbasid Spearmen in particular, your men-at-arms can perform quite nicely there. And siege is also a component that we have to look at. So, since you want to use your Chinese as your Fire Lancer Civ mostly, you might mix in a couple of bombards with them. Abbasids want to be used on Spearmen. So, the HRE sort of gets that economy plus siege role, and it also gives you a chance to go for an early push because, as I said, they can go for fast Imperial. So, they can get some bombards out really fast on the battlefield.
Yeah, you definitely have to worry about that. Just having that mass of gunpowder into your lines. And I'm wondering in this case, would we see walling in a certain way? Are we expecting some stone walls that come out? Maybe wonder victories if it really goes to a longer game. How do
Wonder
you try to fight
Victory
with that choke point? Choke point.
Wonder Victory is always an option. Now, you of course have to ask the question why Wonder Victory is even a thing, because obviously the goal should be to defeat the opponent. However, we have to keep in mind that sometimes these games stall out a lot, in particular on Hill and Dale. But even as you could see, some other maps could have massive stallouts. Danube River could actually end up in a stalemate. You could have even open maps sometimes ending in a stalemate, and then you have three victory conditions: defeat the opponents, which might take 5 hours, or take the sacred sites, which might be impossible because they might just be splitting those, or win with a wonder. So wonder is sort of here as a tiebreaker criteria. Obviously, it's not ideal, and in an ideal world, it would be great if any team could win with a defeat, but ultimately it's there to make sure that we don't have 5 hour long stalemates, especially because one technical thing that we haven't talked about yet is that if any player crashes with their game, there is no way for them to reconnect. So
Mm-hmm.
because of that, we don't really want to have 5 hour long stalemates because that just increases the risk of someone disconnecting and then the game ending in a disappointment. So part of the reason why the Wonder Victory is even a thing is because the infrastructure is not that well set up to have like 5 hour long team games here.
Yeah, you can't just come back from a replay and just, work from that moment. But hey, it looks like all is loaded up and ready to be heading in just a moment. Again, this is a mirror matchup. What could be our final map here at White Wolf Palace that go up against their Australian opponents. We get to see Australians in play, Indian King, Veggie, and Scyther are going for HRE Chinese and Abbasid. Again, mirror matchup on our final map in Hill and Dale. Classic one to go to. A lot of potential for longer late games, maybe wonder victories, but also a lot of fights in, well, the Dale itself, that open field, that open space where Fire Lancers can be something that you have to, deal with. The Abbasids can really brace with their spearmen and deal with their opponents. Who knows? Potentially our final one. And we are in. Lita, take the reins.
Welcome to game number 4 in this best of 5 between Get on the Deers versus White Wolf Palace. It is the quarterfinals of AoE4 Pro League out here. We do have down south the Get on the Deers team. On the left side, we're going to have Veggie playing as the blue Chinese. Down south, you're going to have Dinky King playing as the Holy Roman Empire in red. And on the right side, you are going to have Scyther playing as the yellow Abbasids. Up north, against them is going to be Vivi in the pocket as the green Chinese. To the right side, Lix is going to be playing as the purple Holy Roman Empire. And on the left side, you're going to have Bat Koala playing as the Abbasids in teal. Identical civilizations over here. The size of the hills are also quite similar. Relic distribution looking very, very even as well. So this could be a super even game in the first 10-15 minutes.
I believe so. So what's going on here with our Chinese players on the blue side here? Veggie in the south, going for his wood. Kind of slow here in our opening, as is kind of always expected. Everything being brought in. Where are some prelates? Just giving that boost for the early food to make sure that food generation is going up as fast as possible. And going on to that gold ASAP for the Abbasids in the meantime. So, what are you looking for in the early game to kind of add to that checklist as a player in this matchup, Lita?
But the first thing that you will probably have to look at is looking at the professional scouts for certain players. The Holy Roman Empire loves to play with professional scouts for themselves because ferrying in the deer can help a lot, getting it close to the Aachen Chapel. But the biggest decision point is if you are going to have professional scouts for a Chinese player, because that obviously can help a lot with your food eco, being able to bring in some extra deer to that supervised mill. Sometimes you see Chinese players doing that, sometimes you don't. Seeing what we have seen from Veggie's team in the previous games, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Holy Roman Empire player ferrying in some deer for his Chinese teammate, though, because I think one player is going to get professional scouts, but it's possible that he's just going to send some of those carcasses to his teammate. Whereas up north, looking at Bad Koala's base, he's already got the House of Wisdom up. I would expect a similar approach over here. One player at minimum going for professional scout, and that is likely going to be the Holy Roman Empire player. But you can also think about that with the Chinese. Aachen Chapel already coming in for Licks, and you would expect the same building to be placed by Dinky King in a matter of seconds.
Yep, would not be surprised at all. In the meantime, those Imperial officers on the Chinese side are just supervising for that early boost in food. Aachen Chapel is in for our red side. There it is. Same on the opposite end with Licks. So, yes, like you're saying, that's what you're expecting. Maybe in the future, having those relics that are spread around the map being collected and brought on in just for the extra boost in cash in the future. So, hey, not too shabby for early game so far. People focusing on one another. When would you start expecting any sort of action between, you know, anybody really in this 3v3? Because it seems like with Veggie walling up, you're just gonna sit back and look to get to Castle Age before you do anything.
Exactly. I think the Abbasid player can be the one that starts contesting the map early on, because one thing that you want to accomplish is have your Holy Roman Empire player have as many relics as it is possible. And obviously, that starts with a certain level of map control. Pat Koala, or almost up to Feudal Age with the economy wing, he has been mining stone, so he's going to play multiple town centers. Meanwhile, Vivi is also mining stone, so he's also going to be playing 2 TCs, and as you would expect, Lix is going to be playing 1 town center for the time being. Both teams are rolling up quite early, which is something that we have seen being done way less in the previous rounds, because teams often felt like, okay, we're not going to get pushed that much on this map, might as well delay our walls, but they're slowly learning that, especially when the Abbasids are in the lineup, you could see an early push happening, so you want to wall yourself up so you don't get surprised.
So, economic wing is going to be added here to the House of Wisdom in the meantime. Bit of a scout fight here. We see where our green scout of VV has taken quite a bit of damage, but quickly traded off here with Dinky King on the other side. Again, both sides walling up to make sure that they are nice and clear and there's nobody sneaking up around them to, maybe a sneaky villager setting up somewhere or whatever for anything later on in the game. Imperial Academy is in 2, and on the other side, that Cathedral of Aachen. So things kind of stabilizing here as we look to see who goes to Castle Age first. And Fresh Footsteps is in for our Abbasids. So that boom for the Abbasids on Koala's side will be quite fast. Bit of a fight, but so far, so relaxing.
Indeed, not a lot of casualties so far. Batcall has made a stable though, so this is the first signs of him potentially putting up some level of aggression. He hasn't gotten a mill, so it's not even going to be professional scouts. It is going to be a couple of horsemen or potentially even knights when he gets to Castle Age. Speaking of which, we should already have the Regnitz Cathedral coming in soon for the HRE players. Vivi went to Feudal Age with the Imperial Academy, and he's building the second town center right now. Whereas on the other side, Veggie also went to Feudal Age with the Academy, mining stone very fast here, so he's about to drop that second town center as we speak. And we already have 2 town centers for Scyther. Bad Koala is a little late adding that second town center compared to his counterpart, so he's going to fall behind by a couple of villagers compared to the other Abbasid player.
No, everybody's been walled up and comfy. This is looking great. Why don't we just head to Black Forest in this at this point in 3v3s? It's all gonna be nice and cozy. 2 TCs for pretty much everybody. Everybody gets an extra TC at this point. Extra one for the opposite in the north in Bad Koala. And just adding up onto that economy. Wood lines are being chopped down. So what is the next move? Everybody going for those extra TCs. I'm wondering, okay, what happens now? Do you just turtle up, get to H3, and then start massing or doing some work? What's the next stage?
I think the next stage is going to be contesting those relics at this point, because you have multiple town centers for most players, so the next step is obviously securing those relics for the Holy Roman Empire players. Regnitz Cathedral coming in for Dinky King right now. And on the other side, Lix is a little bit ahead on that department. He's already moving out, and you gotta love how Vivi is sending his scout close to that prelate, making sure that the prelate won't get intercepted by any nasty scouts. So far, you see Bad Koala's team controlling multiple relics over here, just having one scout, trying to make sure that Dinky King can't pick those up. Relic number 1 coming in for Lix already, and he's bringing in relic number 2 with that second prelate in the next couple of moments.
Not too shabby. In the meantime, stone walls are coming up here on the yellow side at the south. Make sure you're completely walled up. Nothing can really do any damage to you for quite a while. There's the prelate coming up in the center next to the sacred site. He's going to be able to collect the relic in just a moment. He's being attacked in the meantime, but he'll be able to survive quite effectively with that scout being at half HP. But there is support coming. Horsemen in the back will do work. He should be able to clean up that prelate before he gets too far back home. Poking and prod him at him. And that looks like a forfeit prelate in this case. Scout, but too late to help out. So, who would have thought cavalry and being able to maneuver very quickly between different parts of the map is a positive thing, right?
And you see just the splitting of duties in between these players. The Holy Roman Empire player doesn't want to invest into anything other than his H-ups at this point, so it is the Abbasid player that's mixing in the cavalry, and that's what's supporting Lix at picking up all those relics. He is bringing in relic number 2 already, and that's going to be relic number 3 he just picked up. And this is the difference between the two teams right now, having another prelate being picked off by Bad Koala, and he's getting a third one. That is just a disaster for Dinky King. He might be denied of all relics at this pace.
That's huge. That is just so much money down the drain. 3 prelates down, a lot of time lost in this case. And what did it take? Only a few horsemen that have been picked up by our Abbasid in the blue Bat Koala. So not too shabby at all in this case. Might be able to even get an extra scout out of it all. What do you do in this case? Because relics for you as HRV is very important once you have your Regnitz Cathedral and you're able to build up that extra cash for the long game.
Oh, this is difficult. This is very, very difficult because you at least need 3 relics, and the biggest problem right now for Dinky King is that not having the relics will delay his Imperial Age, and your boom with the Holy Roman Empire only starts when you get to Imperial, so having that delayed will also mean that you will fall behind quite a bit in terms of economy compared to Lix. You're still looking to try and grab some relics from the left side, and there's one already coming in, so maybe there's a glimpse of hope there to try and pick some more up, but it's going to be very difficult, and now your walls are already being burned through. I kind of feel like this is one of those windows where you could see Bad Koala getting some more cavalry on the field. He's on 3 town centers. Vivi is playing Song Dynasty, but this is one of those windows where I think White Wolf Palace could just play a lot more aggressively and just utilize the fact that their opponents aren't really well defended right now.
Yeah, flood into your opponent's base, maybe pick off a villager or 2, but I have some news coming in through into my ear, Lita here. What's happening is that Regnitz Cathedral has 1 relic in it. So Dinky King finally took 3 prelates, but at least one of them is able to survive and come on through. That's the 4th one. And not sure if he's going to be able to get an extra one back. But hey, 1 is better than none. Big Wololo coming up here to try to save himself. And a lot of damage done to that prelate. It's going to be charged. Looks like it's going to die pretty quickly. There he is. Another one next to him. Maybe he's picking up the relic, trying to fall back. He's still so close to that Palisade Gate. You just gotta rush him down. You shouldn't really care at all about anything else. He's so low on HP, and he drops right at the gate! So much work done, and it doesn't matter if you lose some horsemen to those spears. You've just done so much work, and so many prelates have fallen just to get one relic back home, and the other one just at the doors. That is so much cash being lost in the early game.
Exactly. Imperial Age coming in here for Dinky King, and he's going to have that second relic, but obviously damage has already been done, a lot of prelates killed, and if you look at Lix, he's just going to be swimming in gold. He already has 3 relics in the Ragnitz Cathedral, and 2 more in that monastery. That's 1400 gold per minute passive gold income.
Palace of Swabia is out at the same time. That is actually insane here. He's not only surviving, but he's doing so much work, Lix. This is incredible to see. This is a huge advantage so far.
It is a massive advantage indeed, because now his passive gold income is just going to be spectacular. 2 players reach imp at the same time, so they will have approximately the same villagers as well. Notably, Scyther is on free TCs. You also have that for Bad Koala. So as things stand, the Abbasids are fairly close in economy, as Dinky King has 1 scout inside the base of White Wolf Palace. Not sure how that guy got in there, but it looks like Lix isn't really gonna care about that. We'll just let his opponent scout him. For now, looks like we're going to have the Barbican of the Sun up for Veggie. He is still in Feudal Age, getting to Castle Age in this very moment. And Vivi, he is up already to Castle Age, but he aged up with the Imperial Palace. Now, we're going to see the other landmark as well, the Clock Tower, coming in soon. And once that happens, you could see Fire Lancers coming in. Vivi, however, is very heavy on the stone. Makes me wonder if we're going to see some stone walls or even possibly some keeps in the middle ground.
I mean, at some point, you can move out and do this sort of work, right? There's still that scout from Veggie that's being at least caught up here by 2 villagers. But you take a look at our blue side of Veggie. He's got a lot here to protect his entrance, at least his side of the entrance, into his base. Stone wall gate, extra stone walls, Barbican of the Sun as well. There's a lot for him to work with, and he's even going out and walling in his teammates, as that that 1 relic that we saw outside the red Palisade Gate has been picked up and taken back home. So now at least the Ragnitz Cathedral on the red side of Dinky King is maxed out at his 3. Everybody's walling up. I don't know at what point we'll start moving out in this here, but you see Lix that has built up so many barracks in the center. This can put a lot of pressure pretty quick.
Exactly, especially because the opponent doesn't have a ton of army. At this point, you do have a bunch of spears, but those will just melt the man-at-arms. There's 1 mangonel out here, second one being built. But this is the magic of Lix's Imperial Age. He could make a siege workshop and start getting bombards out if he really wants to. For now, he's only crawling up with towers, securing some ground for himself. For Vivi, he's already getting some granaries out, which means that he's in Yuan Dynasty, and that means Fire Lancers could come in anytime in the future. I think he's gonna get to Imperial Age first for that, but the clock is ticking over there. Other side, Yuan Dynasty is just now coming in for Veggie, so the 2 players are pretty close in that department. But the big question now is, how are you gonna hold off that infantry flood before the Fire Lancers arrive?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I think your best bet at this point is, hey, we at least have stone walls, and that's gonna slow things down. But for how long until we're able to age up and really get in with the proper compositions? Granaries are even in for Vivi in the meantime. Is going to allow him to cash in as much of their crops as possible, make as much food as possible, maybe even slinging between him and his teammates if required. And the barracks still keep on producing spearmen and men-at-arms, even Lensconnect being added into that combination and trying to deny that keep that is being built up here by the HRB. Not enough men-at-arms being brought up by Dinky King in this case. He just doesn't have the eco to handle it versus his opponent, and that keep is gonna go up and is gonna do a lot of work in holding on to a very big anchor of the map. But Scyther is coming in for potential support. Mangonels are in with spearmen and men-at-arms all around.
The castle gets denied.
A lot to have.
The castle is getting denied by the Mangonels, so that is a keep unfinished now. And it looks like Cider is coming in the very moment he had to arrive. Battering Ram's
Oh
infantry
my.
now coming in, and this position is falling for Lix here. He just doesn't have the numbers.
It could not have been a more perfect timing here, just a bit before, and that turns into a doubt keep in the case. Lance Connector also streaming in from the red side to deal with men-at-arms, then a heavily armored units on the other side. Those barracks won't last too long. Yes, they're mangonels, but they're going to be able to do quite a bit of work. 6 barracks in total will be destroyed here soon as bombards and whatever is left will fall back for Lix, building up a new set of barracks. He's still alone in this, facing 2 players. He's still waiting until his teammates are up in a better position in Koala and Vivi before they're able to step in and help him out. And I'm wondering, Lita, when will that time be?
It has to be very soon. The tricky thing is that Vivi is setting up the Fire Lancers right now with the Spirit Way. However, against that many Abbasid Spearmen, as weird as it sounds like, the Fire Lancers will struggle, because the Fire Lancers only get their area damage if they complete a successful charge. But the Abbasid Spearmen can brace, and them having a longer range as well makes it very, very easy for them to slaughter all those Fire Lancers. Probably the best unit right now in the game to deal with the Fire Lancer flood.
I mean, not surprising at all. Here's the Fire Lancers that are pushing up into that keep and trying to destroy it as we speak. As the big fight is happening, there it is. All those barracks are going to be lost again, potentially. Lance Connector coming in. Elite Lance Connect also, maybe to deal with men-at-arms, but there's just not enough of them. Yes, you do AoE damage, but it's just you don't have the proper mass of that infantry. And yeah, with mangonels coming in support, you're going to have to fall back. That early game advantage that we talked about with with Alice and how they've been playing so far, that's just kind of evaporating here as Scyther is once again putting the team in his beautiful backpack with a Hello Kitty sign on it and just moving forward as the absence.
Indeed, this Abbasid push is very powerful. As you said, the numbers are lacking for Lix, but it's very difficult to get your numbers up when you're losing your production buildings faster than you can rebuild them. You see, he's just now finished with a siege workshop, and it's going to get destroyed very soon. Looks like we're going to have men-at-arms coming in, though, from Bad Koala, though, so the Abbasid players are rallying their forces on both sides. But as things stand, it looks like White Wolf Palace is getting pushed back. We also have some sacred sites being taken by Dinky King, so he's working towards those as well. And this is just a scary force to fight against right now. But Vivi already has a big wall of Fire Lancers. The tricky thing is not charging into those Spearmen, because if he does, he's going to lose that entire mass.
I mean, gotta be real careful. Those veteran spearmen can do so much work. Fire Lancers or not, gotta be careful. Even with mangonels behind them, if those Fire Lancers just kind of choose to charge at the wrong moment, not only will they have braced spearmen against them, but also mangonels to keep on firing into their mass. This keep might be the perfect bait that is required, and all spearmen are braced and ready for it. Firing into them, the mangonels in the back. Is there enough space for the Fire Lancers to retreat and keep on charging again? Not too sure. They're going to be split in half, and spearmen are trying to go and chase, but they're being blocked off by battering rams even in the back. Spearmen moving up, but they're met with men-at-arms. They can deal with them very effectively. Fire Lancers are in, but they're in the choke, and there's 2 mangonels from behind that are firing in, but perfect timing for the Springles. Koala is firing into them, targeting down those catapults, and they're just completely destroyed and annihilated. Fire Lancers have to fall back and just allow more space for the infantry to do work here against the spearmen. But so far, it looks like things are stabilizing fairly well. Catapults, mangonels of their own, Springles in the back of the blue side of Koala. This is not looking too hot for Get On the Deers. They're getting on their knees in this one here. And White Wolf Palace just keep on pulling back and charging. Finally, a Lance Connector in, but maybe too little, too late, Lita.
Exactly. Now, part of the reason why this was a massive win for White Wolf Palace is because the men-at-arms of Koala were slaughtering all the spearmen from Scyther. So Scyther had the tools to stop the Fire Lancers, but those were just massacred by all the men-at-arms. Notably, Dinky King has started the Sacred Site countdown, so currently White Wolf Pass has to neutralize one Sacred Site, but I don't think that they will have any trouble with that. Although now Veggie arrives with a big ball of Fire Lancers, so suddenly those numbers even out on the battlefield.
There's so many of those blue Fire Lancers are coming in to push VV back, but there's just so much infantry also in support. The Abbasid infantry is just mixed up so well with the Fire Lancers. Mangonels are in. So many Mangonels in total for Koala, but he also has some Springolds in support with that infantry relying on the Fire Lancers. And actually cuts the blue Fire Lancers in half, destroying one side of them with the other being busy with some infantry in the north. It looks like green is able to clear out all of Veggie's Fire Lancers here and keep on pushing down into the keep. This is looking very, very dire here. Springolds and Mangonels in the back. You have a big mass of infantry, but there's also men-at-arms that can deal with the spearmen, at least delay them until catapults or Mangonels in the past are able to do work. This is an even fight, but I'm really wondering at some point, when will the Fire Lancers be able to charge back and in again?
I think the MVPs right now are those steel men-at-arms, because those yellow spearmen have been holding off the Fire Lancers for long. Obviously, the Mangonel fire was decimating their numbers, but it's really the teal men-at-arms that are just killing the spearmen, and without the spearmen, it's difficult to hold those Fire Lancers. Still, Vivi's numbers were decimated quite heavily over here, but as things stand, really, it is Bad Koala's men-at-arms are just looking good so well. Dinky is also mixing in some of his own men-at-arms, but right now, Scyther is lacking numbers. He's at 160 population. He's got 49 army, but they are not on the battlefield at this point.
Well, some siege work upgrade is coming in here for Lix on the HRE. He's also gone for a trebuchet to build up and use against his opponents, just to deal with any buildings on the other side. Fire Lancers charging into the spearmen, pretty much one-shotting them as there are just a small few of them. Men-at-arms from Koala are fighting against the elite men-at-arms on the other side for Dinky King. With everybody in the imp age, it's only a matter of time before big fights become the norm, and they're kind of starting to become that here. Fire Lance is pushing back, big infantry fight in the middle, and those trebuchets are firing onto the bombards on the other side, low on HP. Dinky King is going to have to actually lose one of those bombards. Very expensive one to lose here, as they're just starting to mass up. That mass of Fire Lancers, though, is scared.
Indeed, this is the biggest thing right now for White Wolf Pass. They have a big army messed up, and they always just charge in whenever they have the numbers advantage. So there's just no chance for Veggie's team to recover here, and that's exactly what we're seeing again. It is pure numbers advantage. The Mangonels are doing work against all those units out there, but ultimately, just the lack of numbers for Scyther's team is what is worrisome for them. The Spearmen are doing their best when it comes to bracing, and they're slowly grinding down those Fire Lancer numbers, but White Wolf Palace is just reinforcing their armies a lot faster than their opponents are able to.
Koala adding in those men-at-arms is just so perfect to tank as much of the damage as possible. Lansknecht also coming in for Lix with his own men-at-arms to deal with the Spearmen on the other side, and Fire Lancers keeping up that mass the whole time. It started off like 10 minutes ago when they are able to charge very effectively against their opponents, even through that small baited keep that was in position. But another keep is going to fall down for Dinky King. And now all of his production is so exposed. One more fight and all of those buildings will go down, unless his teammate Scyther can come in at the right moment and save them again.
Exactly. As I said, those men-at-arms being on the battlefield for Bad Koala helps so much, because they are cleaning up those Abbasid spearmen that are able to stop the Fire Lancers, and without those spearmen, it's just not possible to fight these. And right now, you are basically seeing a 3 versus 1 in the middle. You just don't see any red units, you don't see any yellow units. Only blue units are out there, and as you see, you currently have a 4 retreat here for Dinky King's team. Now you got the Abbasid Spearmen once again bracing in, and when you have Mangonel Fire as well, they do quite a lot against those Fire Lancers as well. Fire Lancers being fairly fragile, and you see, if the Spearmen are able to fight the Fire Lancers, they take good engagements. It's just a matter of having those men-at-arms clean them up.
So at some point, those men-at-arms will start moving here from Koala and actually move in for the help. That would be great. Fire Lancer's trying to surround those elite spearmen on our yellow side of Scyther, but he's positioned very well next to the palisade wall to protect him. Finally, better reaction with men-at-arms, but Springolds are already in position. A bombard as well to help. Not sure why he set up the bombard so close up to the Fire Lancers. It's going to be a big loss here. If it does go down, charging into all of that artillery, everything pretty much going down. Springolds taking so much fire damage here. All of them pretty much melting away. There you go, all down and dead. That is a lot lost here for some Fire Lancers. Just going to keep on producing anyways, but this might be the perfect time for Veggie to move up and charge with himself. Big Bass Fire Lancers that he has, but he sees that there's infantry around, and that might be a bit too much for him to handle on his own. Looks like White Wolf Palace working as a team, picking off their opponents, finding the right fights, but get to the deers, or get on the deers, they're just not finding the right opportunity to fight together as a three-person team.
Exactly. In a couple of moments, we could see that Vivi's cavalry was basically fighting the spearmen without the support of Bad Koala's men-at-arms, and suddenly things turned ugly because those spearmen just killed all the Fire Lancers, and the Fire Lancers of Veggie were able to jump on the infantry. Now you have a narrow choke point in the middle, which could actually decide the outcome of this game over here, as the Fire Lancers do clash into each other.
Big fight and a big hit here from the Mangonels in the back, but there's Springles to try to deal with them from Dinky King, forcing green all the way back to that sacred site. There's all the infantry being cleaned up by the Fire Lancers. Might be a big loss here as you kind of want them to tank those early shots in, allowing your own Fire Lancers to come in from the flank. Clock Tower Bombards are ready to go, really. They've got some Fire Lancers also next to them on the blue side here to help. And a bit of an expansion out into the outside of that hill onto the dale on the left-hand side, keeping that economy alive for get on the deers. Fight still going through, but Bombards in the back are doing work. Springle's coming up. This is getting very hectic here, Lita. What is the next step?
There is a lot of things going on at the same time. You see yellow villagers from Scyther moving all the way up. I'm not exactly sure what they were planning. On the far right side, you have Lix pushing through, though, and this is something that we haven't even spotted yet with all those fighting going on the right side. Lix coming in with the HRA push, and now Scyther's base is lying wide open. He's gonna have to scramble his spearmen, but the spearmen won't do well against the Landsknechte or the men-at-arms. And if the spearmen are pulled from the battlefield, this could give a window for Vivi to push up, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Oh, this is so perfect here. This fight, Landsknechte in, and it's a big mass of infantry, and there's also Mangonels in the back. That's the perfect position for you to take this sort of fight, but a few spearmen coming around on the flank. And also, Dinky King is sending his own men-at-arms with so many Springolds, around 8 in total, that are just firing into his opponent's Mangonels. And Bombards, they won't last for too long. It seems like Lix committing onto this position, this very open space that he could have used, is biting him in the rear. Suddenly, his army is down to bits, and yes, he has a huge economic bonus in that position here to the right side, but he's being melted away slowly but surely.
A wonder is done for...
Oh, no.
Oh, boy. Veggie's got a wonder.
Fire Lancers are going in! The green is in!
Yep, they're in.
Oh, no!
And they're looking for the landmarks. They're targeting the Chinese players, so there's a ton of landmarks to go down. This was a distraction that Lix was able to cause. On the left side, the Fire Lancers break in. They go for the Spirit Way, the Imperial Academy. The Clock Tower goes down. Fire Lancers come back, though, from Veggie. He needs to start repairing those already destroyed buildings as soon as possible.
Imperial Palace. It's left out in the open. Everybody's charging in. How long can the Fire Lancers survive in this case? They're doing so much damage. The palace is melting away, and it's going to go down. That's one more landmark to go. And now trying to find that OGTC to keep on firing into it. There's not much left here. Enclave of the Emperor is all the way in the back. And yes, you need to wall it up. There you go. Finally coming in. Fire Lancers are pulling up here for the green side. But that is so much damage. It's going to slow down Veggie considerably.
Vivi's cavalry charge here almost knocked Veggie out of this game here because he was very much down on the landmarks. This being said, the walls are being repaired. Another wave is assembled by Bad Koala, but barely any spearman support. So Veggie's Fire Lancers could charge in, and we have 13.5 minutes from that wonder countdown. On the right side, though, Lix is rejuvenated, and once again, he's pushing into the base of Scyther. Can they hold for 30.5 minutes? Because that's the main question now. We also have a Sacred Site countdown for Lix, though, and that should have started faster than the Wonder countdown. We don't have that on the overlay, but we'll get some notifications on the right side, unless Dinky King neutralizes them and just completely shatters the plans of White Wolf Palace to go for the Sacred Site victory.
There's not a single unit in sight, actually nobody around here to deny that Sacred Site from being brought down to neutral. That is actually very huge. Everybody's so preoccupied in pushing the blue side here. It's just this is gonna go down. That sacred site is gonna be capped out, and this is gonna start causing problems here for our White Wolf Palace team because suddenly they have to worry about things in a different way. There we go, all grayed out and ready to go. Fire Lancer's a bit too slow to come in and help. More time afforded for Veggie and his team to survive and keep his wonder up and alive. He's just putting as many of his villagers as possible to build up that stone wall, but he doesn't have enough. They're also preoccupied with gathering anything that he might be able to use to build up a military, because there's so many Fire Lancers that are destroying town center after the other. Oh, this is hurting so badly, though.
Exactly, especially because Veggie gets defeated here, and if he gets defeated, his Wonder countdown stops as well. Truthfully, it's not even about the Fire Lancers anymore for Vivi, because it is just pure army numbers. You just don't see any army for Veggie's team anymore. No yellow forces out on the battlefield, barely any red units, and with that, Scyther's team resigns. White Wolf Palace moves into the semifinals. What a game this was. Just absolute craziness, and ultimately, it was the fact that White Wolf Palace always had an easier time reinforcing their armies, and Veggie's team just started to run out of juice here, and they had a harder and harder time to replenish their army. Like, in the last 5 minutes, we barely saw any units coming out of Scyther or Veggie.
I mean, Lick sacrificing his army on the right-hand side of the map, making sure that, hey, if I'm going to die for a reason. It created the opening for Vivi to push on in and destroy so many Chinese landmarks on that side. That pretty much broke it all. Because, yes, you lost an army in Lix's point of view, but his buildings, his economy on the right-hand side, and everybody's eco in their own base was untouched the whole time. Whereas their opponents have to deal with them, constantly being pushed into their own base on either side of the map. That was beautiful to see. And again, White Wolf Palace, they find an opening and they just stick that knife deeper and deeper into it, get on the deers, could not handle the onslaught of their opponents.
Exactly, and some of that could come down to those early relics that fell into the hands of Lix. Lix with 46,000 gold, by far the best in the game. The second most was Dinky King with 37,000, so there was a solid 9,000 extra gold for Lix to work with over his opponent, and obviously that helped a ton. Scyther with exactly 51,000 food gathered in this game, but ultimately, probably those extra relics were the ones that started to swing the eco balance in the favor of White Wolf Palace, and they slowly snowballed the game. With the map control they got, they could get the sacred sites, and even if you don't have all three of them, you still get a gold trickle from those, so that's also something that adds to your economy. And then, of course, as you said, Lix being able to push the right side, forcing Scyther's forces to come there, and Scyther had to fight against a ton of infantry with his own infantry, many of them being spearmen, and he couldn't use those spears against the Fire Lancers of his opponents, so Vivi could just break in and do a ton of damage to Veggie, damage that Veggie was never able to recover from.
That was beautiful to see, and what a way to end this series. We saw water map, we saw open maps, we saw choke points as well being utilized, and two mirrors, one after the other. That was a perfect mirror to end it on, and a beautiful way to see wonder being built, yet still the player being sniped in that time. Flanks, how many times the momentum of that final map kind of swing from one side to the other. We saw it in the beginning where, hey, there was that advancement, those huge barracks, the big fight that we saw happening around the prelates and trying to get their relics back home. But ultimately, it might have swung at that time where losing, like, what is it, 5 or 6 prelates? It's a tough time.